technique, he will be elite. If his technique becomes great, not just good, then he's a Hall of Famer.
Going down again. It's Q. Glenn Williams.
Fighting through contact, fighting through offensive line, being a double team, multiple moves stacked into one, just a play of pure domination. This is actual film. This is actual football talk. It's a football show. We're supposed to talk football, not storylines.
And you are listening to the 55th edition of Blewett Blitz. I believe the fourth live stream that we've had, Kyle. But
that sounds about right.
Ding dong, the witch is dead. A lot to talk about today with Adam Gase firing and Joe Douglas and the organizational structure and head coaching candidates and what to do in the draft and conspiracy theories and so many different things. But before we get into that, what's up, man?
Not too much. Heartbroken. Man, I literally did not want to wake up for work the day after we beat the Rams. I was depressed. And yeah, it really sucked, man. I said to all my students, I said, if we actually, because we were just losing every week and it was so good from there on out, but I was so worried about the Jaguars all year. I said, hey guys, listen, I'm going to give you a free 150 on an assignment if we lock up the number one pick. All of you guys, you don't got to do nothing. And then shortly after I said it, we lost. And then there's the tweet, the infamous tweet, which I'm not deleting, Joe. I am not deleting it.
I still have that on my phone. I screenshot.
But
that.
here's the thing. I was not at all. I completely lost all confidence in the Jaguars. But I tweeted this out right after we got our asses kicked in Seattle. And I was so confident that we were just going to keep losing.
You can't really read that though, right? It's reversed.
Oh no, it says I could see it perfectly.
Oh yeah. What did I say? I said that's Lawrence. He's ours. I can feel it. Delete this. And you're like, oh, conspiracy theories. Okay.
No, I didn't say conspiracy theory. I said you and you're all superstitious. You know, you're supposed to be the guy of logic and reason. Let the film speak for itself. I'm not a stats guy. Prove it to me. Prove it on the field. Give me the evidence. Show me the evidence. This is you. You're the guy of logic and reason, right? But then you're going to believe that my tweet has some. That's why we beat the Rams.
If you did not tweet that, we're number one in the draft.
Oh, stop
we have the number one pick. It is your fault. Yeah, Kyle, your Twitter handle is still tanking for Trevor, so people got to think of some different.
Hey, what if Shad Khan screws it up? And Trevor says,
we're going to talk about that. Like the fact that he's saying he's going to take some, control of the roster and all that stuff. But like I said, you need to change your Twitter handle to maybe like what we got Fields, like fail for Fields or fell for Fields or Wilson. What, I don't know. Worst for Wilson. You got to do something, but tanking for Trevor, it hurts to look at. But the housekeeping, there's really not much other to say. You can file Kyle at tanking for Trevor, which hopefully will be changed over the next live stream. Definitely drop those reviews on the podcast. If you're listening to the podcast stream, what's coming up for the channel. If there is one time, especially in the Jet season, you want to follow, it's now. Whoever they hire at OC, DC, head coach, quarterbacks. I already have, I think, 128 plays recorded of Wilson or of Fields. That's not even finished yet. And then I think I have a little bit over 100 of Wilson, and I still have like 3 games left. So you have a shit ton of that stuff coming. Free agents, breakdowns, everything is coming to this channel. So it's not just people who are going to Google stats and say, oh my God, yeah, look, he had 60 catches for 1,000 yards. He's a good receiver on our offense. Like that's what you're going to get 90% of these channels. So definitely check it, obviously stay loyal to the channel. 46 people in here. I appreciate it. Throw some likes. Good to see Jets fans smiling. Yeah, it's I wasn't smiling at first, Kyle. Like you said, with that whole loss to the Rams, like I must have gotten at least 15 texts from people at my work. Jets can't even lose right. They suck. And this is why I said on the stream, I'm not sure if you watched, like you said, you try to keep yourself kind of raw to what I've been putting out when we talk about on here, but that guy who commented under the channel, and I was like, he's like, oh, he's stressing the whatever they were, the 8-4 Rams. He's stressing the Browns, like all this stuff. Oh, yeah. He's like, worst introduction ever. And I was like, just I gave some reasons. Jared Goff sucks. He's completely, aided by McVay, but I think Goff in any other offense is terrible. I don't like Goff at all. The Browns are the Browns, and they have a minus point differential this year, which is really telling of how kind of fluky their record is at certain points. And I was afraid
But I
of those
think
games.
they win. I think they win that game though if they have all their receivers.
Yes, but still, regardless, the NFL is so unpredictable. So to say, oh, absolutely, the Jets are locked to get number one, that's why I never had faith. And that's why people like Kyle Smith who come on and say, he's a lock, he's ours. I can feel it. It frightens me a little bit, regardless if it's superstitions or not. But before we get into the rest of it, Kyle, how's your holiday? I'd be kind of a dick not to ask how's your holiday? How's your start to 2021? You feeling good? Are you over the Trevor Lawrence stuff right now?
I think the only way I could ever get over that is if we actually do draft a young quarterback at 2, and he's actually like really, 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 really good. I think that's the only way I could ever get over it, because you're talking like Lawrence has got everything, man. And, of course, making the transition to the NFL and whatever situation he's thrown into is going to matter a lot. But I don't think anyone is going to be shocked if Trevor Lawrence is a Hall of Fame type of player. And to get a guy of that caliber and to know that, man, we could have had that guy for 15, maybe 20 years. I mean, shit, by the time 15, 20 years rolls around, Joe, you and I are going to be in our 50s if it's 20 years. Well,
no. I'll be in my 40s. I'll be mid 40s. Watch out.
Late 40s. You're what?
I think 47 is closer to mid 40s than it is late 40s. That's
okay. So I'm just saying, so I think that's the only way I could really get over. So I'm still not over it, but man, watching Fields after he took that hit and then some of the throws that he was making, that got me pretty excited. I don't know if he's the guy. I mean, I don't know if I'm going to like him better than Wilson, but that gave me some, and also, listen, if Urban Meyer is the coach of Jacksonville, he's got the connection with Ryan Day, right? Could Ryan Day say, listen, man, I know this guy. This is the guy. You need to take this guy. Is it possible? Seems very unlikely that he would take him over Lawrence.
Well,
but
I think everybody was talking about Urban Meyer and his connection to Ohio State. And then somebody came out and I don't know if it was from an interview or whatever he said, but he's like, Trevor Lawrence is the best quarterback I've ever seen. So it's like, yeah, that got shot down real quick.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's going to happen, but there are people in the chat, and hello, everybody in the chat, Pete, Sam, Zach, J.E., Sam, there's a bunch of people. Clifford, we appreciate everybody for tuning in. And a couple of people in the chat are making some Adam Gase is still in the chat, which Adam Gase is dedicated to the Jets after even being fired. That's kind of funny, but the Russell Wilson versus Andrew Luck debate. It's like, yeah, obviously you like to have the first pick and pick the guy of your choice, but it's not a complete lock that he's going to be better, than a Justin Fields if he hits his ceiling, or a Zach Wilson if he turns into a little bit of a weaker armed Pat Mahomes. So there is a possibility, but obviously want the first pick. But there are some positives of these guys watching their film. Like I said, obviously recording over 100 plays on YouTube, I have a pretty good feel for what they are. I want to kind of hone in on the strengths and weaknesses that I have with some of my notes and kind of get it better organized. But I do have a pretty good feel of these guys. And I'm excited for either one of them at 2. We will get into that.
By the way, why are you not considering Lance at 2? I mean, I know that we're not hearing a lot of that nationally, but have you even watched him?
Generically, it's just because, especially a guy from a smaller conference with not getting a lot of starts, it's concerning. That gives me serious Mark Sanchez vibes, where it's like 12 starts and he gets drafted at number 2. I just don't think, for anything I've heard, anybody I respect, that he's going to be worthwhile of that second pick. I will watch him. I'll definitely watch him and see if it's worth doing a review, because I do want to review guys who are going to be options at 2. And if I don't feel he is, I probably won't do it. But I just think in a guy in a smaller conference, and obviously, having such little starts and being a kind of a run first quarterback that people say, even though he does have a good deep ball, he has apparently a quick load up, quick release, things like that. He would be an option I think to at least consider, but I just don't think he's realistic right now. So when I'm looking at it, all the national guys who are wrong a lot, but they generically have people in a kind of a correct window, especially for quarterbacks, so I've only really looked into Wilson Fields at this point.
Okay. That's fair.
But we're going to talk about that in a little bit too. The first topic of the night is Gase getting fired. Overall thoughts. We've hash this out a ton about our thoughts on Gase and his tenure with the Jets. But overall, what are your kind of feelings about getting rid of him? What are what's your favorite moments of of Adam Gase as the Jets coach?
I just want to say this about Gase. For anybody who follows me on Twitter, which I don't have like a following like you, not even anywhere close, you probably get the impression that, oh man, this guy really hates Sam Darnold. I don't hate Sam Darnold.
I think you do a little bit.
I hate his game. No, I wanted him to succeed, man. I wanted him to succeed.
Yeah.
I contemplated buying a Darnold jersey, but I was never sold on his game. So thankfully I didn't, but I wanted him to succeed. But he just didn't. And at this point I've moved on. I want him gone. So that's why I slander his game a lot, but I wish him well in life. Now, people might wonder, why don't you tweet and criticize Adam Gase the way that you do Sam Darnold? Well, that's low hanging fruit. Obviously, I don't know of any Gase supporters at this point. I don't know of any. Now, I know there were some after the 6-2 finish last year, but when this season started so horribly, I think even those guys had to jump ship. So that's why I don't really criticize him like that. I mean, he was a terrible coach, terrible leader.
Yeah.
I guess Christopher Johnson's stretching it quite a bit when he's saying brilliant offensive mind. I do think that Gase has a mind for offense, but he is so stubborn. He's so terrible at, managing a roster and things like that, and being a leader, and, being a CEO of an organization. So for all these reasons, he sucked. I'm glad he's gone. And my favorite part of him was he did a hell of a job. He did a hell of a job with this tank. He really did.
No, he didn't. He won 2 games at the end. He did a terrible job.
Listen, Joe, most years, the Bengals won 2 games last year. Any year you win 2 games. The Colts started 0-13 the year they got Luck, only won 2 games.
I don't care about the what ifs. What did he do? He got us the number 2
Jacksonville just did it better than us, man. Jacksonville started Mike Glennon.
I know we talk about the Jets and the Jags tanking, but I think the Eagles out tanked us all last night. I don't know if you watched that, but I see some people in the chat. The
Eagles lost to the Giants.
Some people saying going to be judgment on these non-Lawrence QBs until judges review. Yeah. So Indy, I appreciate that. Some people asking about Wilson's shoulder surgeries. Just to comment on that real quick before I forget later. Play like a Jet. Scott Mason, who's both my and Kyle's friend, had a orthopedic surgeon who did Drew Brees surgeries 15 years ago, whatever, on his torn labrum in his shoulder. And it's the same injury that Zach Wilson has, and it hasn't slowed down Drew Brees. And he asked the doctor if it's concerning for Zach Wilson. He said no. So I wouldn't be as concerned as some people are with that. People are talking about Wilson versus Fields. We'll definitely get into that as well. Asking about
speaking
coaching
of
candidates.
Scott Mason as a friend, he's a better friend than you, because at least he answers my meme about Sergeant Al Powell on Christmas Eve.
The hell?
Oh yeah, Die Hard. You didn't even bother to answer it.
I'm still mad at you from that whole sarcastic.
Oh, so you don't answer my text?
No, you're in timeout. You're in the doghouse. Let's see if you can revive yourself tonight and hit some good takes and get some listeners in here. Some people asking about, somebody asked me, why not take Lance second round over second overall? Yeah.
He's not lasting that long.
No, he's not lasting that long. You're not, listen, I like all the, not the hoopla, but like people are like, oh, well, why don't you trade down to 4? Then if he's not there, then you trade down to 6 and you can get your quarterback. Listen, if you like any of these quarterbacks, you take them at 2, you don't get cute. You trade down to 4, and then the Dolphins get a huge offer at 3 because somebody didn't think the Jets were going to pass up on Fields. Now they did. Now you're freaking screwed. You don't have Fields. Now you got to take Wilson, your second guy. Like, let's just take a quarterback. We like a quarterback. It's the most important position of all sports. But in terms of the Gase stuff, man, he's just absolutely awful. No adjusting, no halftime adjustments, alienating players, running Gore up the middle when Ty Johnson clearly was better this year for the team. Time management, screens, just screens, deep routes on third. They're showing blitz looks, and you have 15 to 20 yard developing routes down the field instead of giving Darnold hot routes and things like that. Clearly an asshole, not a leader, just absolutely brutal. I'm so glad to get rid of him. There's not really much we have to do. I think 90% of Jets fans at the time knew he was a bad hire. We try to convince ourselves of him, but that was the worst hire they've made in so many years, given what they were kind of looking at in terms of his past resumes. So
by the way, I also want to say this. I also, and I do not regret this, and I still stick by this. I'm glad that we hired him instead of Mike McCarthy.
Yeah, that's something that a lot of people have been quiet about. I thought about that the other day. A lot of people were like, "Oh my God, I don't want Kingsbury. I don't want which Kingsbury's struggling a little bit right now too. But I didn't want Rule and all this stuff. And a lot of people were saying, "Oh well, I wanted McCarthy." And everything about McCarthy that you looked when you looked into it was that he runs a lot of isolation routes. So it was more of Aaron Rodgers and his weapons more than his actual offense scheming guys open. And apparently he got lazy towards the end of the career where he wasn't really trying to be innovative. And then people wanted to hire him. And I just wasn't about it. Anything I heard about the guy. So Gase, and I probably still have tweets I can go back to, where Gase and McCarthy are my bottom two. And of course they hire one of the bottom two. Now the Cowboys, I think, are sticking with McCarthy. So that's terrible for them and their franchise. There's a couple of teams in tough spots. The Cowboys, the Dolphins right now, man, like, listen, I know Tua can develop, but he has not been a positive for them. He's not looking good. His rookie, and I know it's his rookie year and stuff like that, but he's not.
Have you watched a lot of him? Didn't he play well in Arizona?
In Arizona, I don't know. I watched the game last night. I watched him when he played against the the Jets, obviously, and I haven't been impressed overall. I think
he only played a couple snaps against the Jets.
Yeah, no, I know.
No, Fitzpatrick started both games.
I'm trying to think what other. So I watched the game last night against who the hell did they play yesterday? That was the Bills game. Got absolutely shredded. And I think I watched another game. I watched two games like almost in full of him, and it's a lot of horizontal passing. And a lot of his problem at Bama was he didn't really throw the ball deep. So when people stack the box a little bit against him and play intermediate, he doesn't really let the ball go loose deep. So he struggles, I think, to get the ball down the field, in my opinion.
I was hearing I saw someone, I can't remember who said it. Someone who I follow on Twitter was wondering if his hip is still an issue, because one of the things that, was a positive for Tua coming out of the draft was his ability to improvise, extend plays, which was also to his downfall because it led to him taking hits a lot. And he's not durable like Russell Wilson or whatever. So, but I mean, people were questioning, his ability to do some of those things and wondering if his hip is still bothering him. I don't know if you were seeing any of that when you were watching him.
No, I was watching as like a generic fan. Like I wasn't evaluating, his hips and, his throws, and if he's driving his hips through, and if his footwork is off, and a lot of that stuff we'll get into with the other quarterbacks. A lot of people are asking questions about the coaching and things like that. We're going to get into all of that. Coaching candidates you think will get the most out of Wilson and Fields. We'll talk about that as well. Adam Gase. Let's see. Okay. Next thing I want to talk about is obviously the coaching search. Kyle, a lot of people are talking about it in the chat. Actually, let's get to this first, because this is something that came out today that was a little bit interesting in terms of Douglas leading the search. Obviously, a lot of it's like coach speak and GM speak and owner speak, but the Johnson seemed a little bit more committed this time to allowing Joe Douglas to make the recommendation and him run the search, instead of the Johnsons getting a call from, Peyton Manning at the last second, getting a recommendation from a quarterback who is his friend basically, and then hiring that guy. So I am definitely happier that it's in Joe Douglas's hands, because he is that highly touted football game guy. I know a lot of people will criticize, the draft, which I think has been overall pretty good. Obviously you want to give a draft at least 2-3 years. A lot of people criticize free agents, but show me the free agents a
lot of people criticize his draft.
Yeah, a lot of dude. Twitter's a cesspool, man. Twitter's a cesspool. It's Perrine hasn't played. He looks like a number 2 guy, and Davis is hurt, and Mims is hurt. Yeah, because Mims had a ton of injuries in college. Becton was hurt. Becton wasn't hurt in college. Obviously to be concerned a little bit about the joints because of the way he's loading onto those knees and ankles and things like that. But Braden Mann, Cam Clark didn't play. James Morgan didn't play. Like, people want these guys to come out and be superstars right away. Those are the people who are not very bright. But overall, the first 2 picks, I'm pretty impressed. Obviously, Adam Gase holds them back a lot. The offensive
but my thing was I didn't see any smart people ever criticize this draft class.
Okay, that's fair point. Touche. Free agency, people have criticized that as well. And listen, show me the Trumaine Johnson contract he doled out for a guy with $16 million a year. That's not working out right now. People are like, oh my God, he signed Desir to be the number 1. Yeah, he signed Desir for $3.5 million. Like he knew he wasn't the answer at long-term at corner. Now, if you want to criticize McGovern a little bit, sure, but McGovern's been playing, a little bit better. Should he have done more to aid this roster? And people will argue that, Darnold was on his rookie deal. He should have went all in this season. Yes, because our roster was very clearly, Kyle, in a place where a couple of big free agents this year would have brought us to the Super Bowl. Like, that's the most dumb argument I've ever heard too, where people are arguing we should have brought in more guys, more big name free agents. Like, why?
Oh yeah.
You know, he knew it was coming, and people will say, "Oh, well, he promised Sam Darnold this and promised Sam Darnold that." No, he's not going to come out in the media and say, "Yeah, you know what? I think we're kind of going to suck this year, so I'm not really going to pour a lot of our money into free agency." Is that what you wanted him to say? Like, are you really that naive? So,
And he promised Sam Darnold and his parents that he would protect him better, and he did do that. This offensive line was a pretty decent upgrade, if we're being honest.
people say it's not. It's just as bad as last year. I've seen that too, which is an
That's
absolute
complete
joke.
bullshit. You're not
even if
you're not watching
watching
the film, or you don't know what you're watching.
No, not even the film. If you don't realize that Darnold has a lot more time in the pocket, you're not even watching the broadcast correctly, because it's so. Listen, is this your good offensive line? No. Is this offensive line average? No. Is it as bad as it was last year, where it was one of the worst offensive lines I've ever seen?
It's like
Absolutely
a bottom
not.
3 unit last year.
No, it was number 2 worst in the league, minus the Dolphins, who were absolutely terrible. And this year, you've had a lot of, Josh Andrews coming in and playing, and Elflein coming in and playing instead of the starters. So people who say the offensive line wasn't improved at all, you got to learn how to watch even the broadcast. I think the 153 people in this chat right now, I think 150 realize the offensive line was a lot better this year. Now you can argue Conklin versus this guy, or Glasgow versus McGovern, whatever you want to argue what he should have done, but to kind of just brush it off and say it wasn't an upgrade, it was an absolute, it's stupid. But he has a lot on his plate this year.
And can we also say this? So people are criticizing McGovern. Oh, he didn't live up to the contract. Most free agents do not live up to most free agents that you're signing from another team. They do not live up to their contract, right? I think you'd agree with that, right, Joe?
Mostly, yeah, I would say, yeah.
And listen, McGovern, sure. Did he live up to the contract? No, he hasn't to this point. Hopefully he will. But he is still significantly better than what the Jets put out at center the past couple of years.
And again, and it happened. I forget what game it was. Like, it was like an outside zone play to the left, and there was like a 2-eye tech, and a 2-eye tech aggressively like set to the right, where you try to penetrate the B gap, and the left guard didn't help McGovern at all, and people are like, "Oh my God, McGovern terribly couldn't reach that guy." I want to see what guy in the NFL could reach. So like the problem with McGovern too, with some of his stats and the PFFs and all these other whatever shit out there, minus Nania, is they don't know what they're watching, and they don't know how people are supposed to pass off and hand check and drag, and okay, well, on a stunt, did he get proper depth? Were his eyes locked on for too long? Like all this stuff. So when he has bad guard play around him, specifically with Andrews, who's terrible in pass protection, and Elflein, who's terrible in pass protection, and then you have Josh Andrews for a lot of the season next to him at right guard. It's going to be hard to look good as a center, because people just see the interior offensive line giving up pressure and say, "Oh, they all suck," So, but getting into the kind of the structure with Joe Douglas, are you happy that they're saying that it's going to be primarily him? And then also there were some rumors today. Well, not rumors. They said that they're considering a change of the organizational structure of Joe Douglas being the head coach reporting to Douglas, and not the head coach and the GM both reporting to the owner. So that gives me some confidence that they're realizing that what they've been doing hasn't worked. And over the last couple of years, like, you have the GM who's forcing the coach, or the coach who's forcing the GM. We've seen that, with Gase to Douglas, with Izek to Rex, with, all of these guys in the last couple of years. So I'm definitely pretty confident. I'm not confident 100% going forward, but I'm more confident than in years past. And I forgot what I was going to say, but what are your thoughts to
that? Yeah. So obviously letting Joe Douglas lead the search is great news, phenomenal news, tremendous news. I can't think of the last time the Jets have actually hired a coach where the GM was literally the guy basically having the most say in picking that guy. I mean, it's always like, oh, they're hiring Corn Ferry to do a GM search, or, oh, they're Charlie Casserly to help find the next coach, or Christopher Johnson, who knows jack shit about football, is going to be leading the coaching search. I mean, sometimes when we get this ridicule from national media, sometimes we do deserve it, and that's an example of it.
Yeah.
But listen, Joe Douglas, you find me one person worth his salt that has criticized Joe Douglas. Everyone seems to really respect this guy around the league.
Minus the fanboys out there who want him to come in one offseason, turn him into a playoff team with a completely barren roster. that was inherited over years and years and years and years of bad drafting. And now we have people in the chat like Becton B+, Hall C+. You think Hall's a C+ in the 5th round? You're absolutely kidding me. Mims a C, joke. Davis is a D+ for a guy who's raw coming in his first year, having like 5 starts.
This
like,
is one guy getting all these ratings.
Yeah. Like what is like boycott Activision? Like what are you doing with those grades, bro? Those are terrible. And again, you want to see okay. There's a ton of comments. I appreciate everybody in here.
So that's great. Going back, that's great that Joe Douglas is leading the search, and just hopefully, the 2nd overall pick and whatever Douglas can sell will be enough to get in. Hopefully, a good guy. And I think you and I and most people are kind of on board that rather than going with the coordinator, because coordinators could be hit or miss. It's like Sean McDermott. I watch a lot of Buffalo. My brother's a Bills fan. He was a coordinator for many years. That was a great fucking hire. He's a great head coach. You don't always get those, though. All right. Sometimes the coordinators are hit or miss. McVay, he was a coordinator for a couple of years in Washington, very young. People are making the comparisons between him and Joe Brady. Could Joe Brady be the next Sean McVay? Yeah, maybe. Or he could be, I don't know. I doubt he could be Adam Gase, but
yeah, I'm just excited to get everybody aligned. Like Joe Douglas pick his guy and that new coach pick his quarterback instead of, Darnold on Gase and like, all these things that have happened, where it's going to be more aligned, and I'm excited about that. Welcome back, Dark, to the chat. I know it would take a week or two for him to get back, but he's back in here. But what were you going to say, Kyle?
Didn't you also want me to comment on the reporting structure?
Sure.
So I got a question for you then, because I think you know this better than me. How long has that reporting structure been in place where the GM reports independently to ownership and the head coach reports independently to ownership? As far
as I know, that's happened. I'm sure Sabo could tell you that, but as far as I can remember being like a diehard fan where I knew that stuff. So like the 2007, 2008, like I know it's been at least since then. I think that's always been a thing with the Johnsons.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it was a Johnson thing because Bill Parcells before that, it was Bill Parcells. He ran the whole show.
Okay.
So once Woody came in and Herm came in, it kind of developed from there. But it's a consideration. They said they don't know if they're going to do it, but that's definitely one thing he highlighted today on the call.
Now just think about it from owner's perspective. Thank you, Robbie, for that insight.
What an insert right there. I did not expect to hear that. Just like a voice coming down from the heavens right there. I'm here,
I didn't either. So now you can see from an ownership perspective why they would want that. Yeah, you got to think there's a little bit of arrogance that comes when you're a rich billionaire and you run a big company and stuff. You kind of want your hand in decisions and things like that because you think you're smart and all these kinds of things. But the reality is the Johnsons don't know that much about football. They might know stuff about making drugs and things like that.
Baby powder and shit. Who get them?
And that kind of stuff. But they don't know about football. So to get them, I'm just spitballing here. Obviously, this reporting structure hasn't worked. The Jets have missed the playoffs for 10 straight years. So it hasn't worked. But I see this as them being able to communicate less and get their ideas across less. It moves them out of the picture more. And when you're talking about people who don't really understand football as much, I can only see that as being a good thing.
Yeah, for sure. Some people talk about like the draft and stuff. Mims, listen, trying to evaluate Mims with Darnold is not necessarily the easiest thing. Like people talk about Perryman, like look how much, like look again. I don't want to kill Darnold on this show, but if Perryman was linked up for Flacco the entire season, what are Perryman's stats this year? Like he was much more productive under Flacco. Mims was pretty good with Flacco. Like just Darnold, and a lot of the problem the last couple of weeks is like look how productive the running backs and tight ends have been because everything's just check downs and just trying to get the ball out of his hands fast because he can't read a defense. So just make it really easy for him. And a lot of the Rams stuff, like if you watch the show, like a lot of it was just blown defenses. Like the Rams just did not switch well.
They came out so flat in that game. They thought that they would just easily walk over the Jets after they stomped the Patriots. They were totally unprepared. Yeah, they had a lot of blown assignments in that game.
Yeah,
it was that was like watching late stage Todd Bowles defense when he had what the hell is that? Rontez Miles playing safety.
Oh my God, that guy was lost. He was so lost. And
that's guy played hard, man, but he did not know where to be.
Some people are recommending that Bless Austin move to strong safety. Just getting into that. Listen, Bless Austin struggles a lot at corner with his eyes and safety. Like one of your most important things at safety is your eyes. And he would be brutal as a strong safety. And listen, he might make a nice tackle or two, but he also misses another tackle or two in that same game. Like that Bills game, people are like hyping him up, like, oh my God, he had so many good tackles this game. I watched the film and it was almost like a Blake Cashman type deal again, where it was like, okay, he missed like 3 or 4 of them. He made 1 or 2. Like, congratulations. Like you're hitting on 30% of your tackle attempts. Like, congratulations, you know? Watch the tape. Mims and Crowder and Perryman are wide open. Sam sees, listen, the weapons are definitely better than people think they are, because of obviously the limitations from both the offense they're playing in and the limitations from Sam as a quarterback. If you're going to argue Sam is a good quarterback right now, you're watching YouTube highlights of him and not really watching the game. If you're you're not seeing the guys he's missing, the fact that he's not seeing blitzers pre-snap, he's coming off of reads really slowly, much more inaccurate than he was at college. His footwork is even worse than it was then. Not activating his hips, not getting his lead foot pointed. He's been terrible. So I wouldn't try to judge Mims, and especially listen. I'm
not even selling play action.
I'm not. Yeah, exactly. And I'm not a savant, but Marcus Coleman played in the NFL, and listen, this might be a little bit too much hype for him, but he saw a Julio Jones type player in him. Do I think he'll be that high of a player? No. Do I think he has a ceiling of an AJ Green type player if he reaches it? Yes, I do. I legitimately do. So let's not judge the guy in this offense in his first year with no camp, injuries, all these other things. So, and again, I'm not a hype boy of these guys. So somebody else said, Carmelo says, did the Johnsons double down on wanting Sam Darnold? He said that he thinks, I believe he said Sam Darnold, like he has potential and he likes them, but he's gonna let Joe Douglas make the decision. Like the most stock owner answer, like he's not gonna say, yeah, Darnold sucks, we're gonna trade him. So I wouldn't worry about that. Anybody in the chat who's worrying about him.
By the way, if your owner is very lukewarm on a quarterback that you took 3rd overall and traded 3 second-round picks to move up to get, as well as your 1st rounder at 6th overall, and then he's that lukewarm, that's not a good sign at all.
Jet Life, I want to know why Bless Austin would be great in a Tampa 2 defense. For what reason? Again, your eyes have to be good, and his eyes, he gets so lost into the quarterback, it's like he's in love, and his hips are bad, his eyes are bad. He's way too aggressive. So you want him as a second highest, or you want him to split the field with another safety, where if he gets sucked up and you have a corner who's playing trail technique and trying to pass it off to the Tampa 2 defender, and Bless Austin's locked on the quarterback, then guess who has a 70-yard touchdown? Whoever the Jets are playing. He's not a good corner. There's no way.
He's really bad.
Yeah, he's bad. I have more faith in Lamar Jackson going forward than him. But in terms of Darnold, I guess we can get to this now. Obviously, we don't think he's very good. We went into it a ton. Why he's bad. If you want, again, go on my Twitter, JoeRB31. I put up a bad Darnold thread. Go back and watch the segments of Darnold. Dark usually goes in and timestamps him. He didn't the last 2 games, but because he was depressed, but he's back now. Watch the Darnold segments, and you see a lot of the stuff we're talking about. He's been absolutely terrible. Just missing guys completely. So, and again, some of it is Gase, or a lot of it is Gase. A lot of it's the offense that's been built around him. A lot of it's shell shock from him with the offensive line that was put around the first 2 years. But it's undeniable that he's damaged goods at this point. A lot of it is his fault as well. And to bank on him going into his 4th year, when I believe you have to I guess extend that 5th year option. Yeah. Okay. So May, you have to put on that 5th year option for $25 million and say, hey, Kyle Smith, you're a new head coach. Fix these damaged goods. You have to pay $25 million or draft a guy at number 2. And a lot of people, the conspiracy theorist type people out there will say, oh, we'll just trade down. Okay. Trade down, figure out if Darnold's your quarterback this year. Guess what? The Jets have $80+ million in cap space. They have a ton of draft picks. So now, even if you have Darnold with a new coach, and this year, if they had a good coach, they would have won at least 4 or 5 games. So you figure with a jump next year, better coach, maybe coaches Darnold a little bit better, but he's still below average, bad, whatever. You're going to win 7 to 8 games. Now you're picking at 15. Now you got to trade a shit ton of assets to get back to number 2 or number 1 or number 3 to get a quarterback that you might not even know is going to be there, because we don't know what's going to happen next year with the quarterback. So we're at 2 now. Let's take a quarterback now. We have plenty of assets to build around Darnold. If you trade Darnold for a lot of people rumor a 2 and a 5, even if it's just a 2, you have 2 firsts, you have 2 seconds, you have 2 thirds, you have 2 fourths if Leonard Williams is signed to the Giants. That's not enough assets to build around a new quarterback. Like, come on, like it's not. Oh, it's just so easy to get a quarterback. It's so easy to find adjusted Fields or Zach Wilson out there. Like it doesn't happen like that. Like look at the Dwayne Haskins and Daniel Jones draft. Like we don't want any of those guys. So you have these guys who you should like sitting at number 2. You can't just say, oh, we'll just push off quarterback. Fuck it. Why not?
I couldn't agree with you more. And people will try to say, oh, well, just because you have the higher pick in the draft doesn't mean that you're going to draft a better quarterback. And let's even look at a recent draft where the Jets should have taken a quarterback, 2017. So they took Jamal Adams. Well, Trubisky went before Mahomes and Watson, which went at 10 and 12 respectively. Yes, I know they went at 10 and 12, but they still went early in the draft. And guess what? Both teams traded up to get those guys, meaning that both teams traded a first-round pick the following year to move up to get those guys. So you're going to have to give up future assets if you want to trade up in a future year to even have a shot at picking a guy. Mm-hmm. And who knows if the guy you like is even going to be there. You don't know that. The name of the game in the NFL now is trading up to get your quarterback. Now, I know these two guys really haven't kind of lived up to their draft type, but even look at 2016, Goff and Wentz. Both teams traded up big time to get those guys. To move up from 15 to 1, the Rams gave up like 3-ish first rounders or something like that. They traded a lot. Eagles traded a lot to move up to get Wentz too. So you might even if you try to trade up, you might get outbid by another team. And and sure, like how many times has waiting till the second round to draft a quarterback really worked out? Yeah. So if your guy is there, and I keep hearing this, I can't really say too much for myself yet. One thing I'm definitely going to do a lot this offseason is I'm going to watch a lot of tapes of these quarterbacks, especially Wilson and Fields. And I'll probably even watch a good amount of Lance too, just to kind of, even if it's not a possibility, whatever, I guess he deserves that, in my opinion. And I'm just going to try to ignore what other people are saying about them and develop my own ideas about that. Mm-hmm. But if you like one of those guys, anyway, what my point was with Fields, I keep hearing with him that he could possibly go first overall in many other drafts. He's that talented.
Yeah. So we have a lot of, do you guys get to callers? Because I'm on the lot. Yeah, we'll get to callers soon. I see, obviously we have like an opening, not a monologue, but we just want to get into the topics. We do have 2 callers on the lineup. We'll get to them in a second. Dark, you do not have to go back and timestamp the videos. I don't think anybody's going to go back and watch those. Some people are making the comparison. Somebody asked more talented Watson versus Fields. If you're talking physical talent, it's Fields easily. But that's not what quarterback's about. It's a lot about the mental. A lot about technique.
Watson's processing is one of the best in the game.
Now, and I see it's Snoopy who's saying he sees some rust in Deshaun and Justin. Those comparisons, the Deshaun Watson, the Deshaun Watson, the Russ Wilson, the Carson Wentz comparisons out there are I see them as kind of viable because there are quarterbacks who like to create, and they're a quarterback who might take a sack on one play, but then extend a play, for 10 seconds and dump a ball off because of their size and their natural ability. So I can see those. Again, a lot of people are asking about that type of stuff. If you're new to this channel, we get into a lot of film, and I get into a lot of film personally, where you're going to know their nice drop in the mic. You're going to know their arm angles. You're going to know their hips. Do they bring their back hip through? Are they locking out their front leg? Is their release long? Everything. Like that's what the channel is about. We do this once a month to kind of talk more generically and talk to the callers and interact with you guys on the YouTube and things like that. But yeah, Fields is definitely more talented from a physical aspect. But Watson, if you're in if Fields could be not half of Watson. If Fields could be Watson, you'd have to be absolutely static. Let's see. Eberflus. We're going to talk about some of the coaches in a little bit. Some people talk about taking Trask or Lance. Like those guys are not bottom tier guys, but they're not the prospects that I think a Wilson or a Fields is at this point. But what do you think about Zach Wilson and him going to the Jets at number 2? We'll get into that a little bit. I'm fine with either Wilson or Fields right now. I have my preference based on the film I've watched. And again, I'll break down over 100 plays on this channel. And we'll talk about it more in depth at a certain point, but I'm going to get to the callers. We're going to keep the callers a little bit shorter tonight just because we have a lot of topics to talk about. We have Bernard, and then we'll get into Roshan, I believe it is. After that, let's see if we can hear Bernard. Bernard, what's up?
Hey, how you doing, Joe and Kyle? I want to get into the draft a little bit. How you doing?
Doing well, man. I appreciate you calling in for your second time. I hope you had a happy holidays, and I hope you're doing well.
Oh, yeah. Yes, I am. Thank you. And the same to you. Yeah, I just got the notification online, and that's why I tuned in. I said I better go and call in and try to get through.
Perfect. Yeah, we appreciate you calling in, man. So what are your thoughts? You want to talk some of the quarterbacks, the draft?
Yeah, most certainly. I had a chance to look at Joe Fields' performance against Clemson, and I came away very, very impressed. Now, initially, Zach Wilson was my guy, but I'm starting to rethink that now. I look at the Baltimore Ravens, and I thought about this today. They could have the template to make it possible for us to go on and take Justin Fields, and obviously we're going to bring in a new head coach. And I see a formula there that could work for us and make us very powerful again. Justin Fields is not as explosive as Lamar Jackson, I'll admit that, but he is a legit dual threat, and he's got a heck of an arm. He's got a tremendous arm. I didn't realize he could throw the ball as well as he does. It is very impressive. Obviously, he needs development. But what do you think about that possibility of going and take Justin Fields with the number 2 pick?
Kyle, you want to go first? Or you want me to hit on that?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name. My microphone fell before.
It's Bernard again from last week, Kyle.
All right. Yeah, Bernard was great when he called me last month. All right. So, listen, I am 100%. There is no doubt in my mind that I want the Jets to take a quarterback at 2. I don't want Stafford. It's not that I don't like Stafford, but you're talking about getting a guy who's on the back end of his career. It's a huge contract. It's going to be harder to rebuild when you don't have those other assets. Yeah. So I'm all for taking the young quarterback who could turn into something special. Is it Wilson or Fields? I don't know yet. I'm going to do a big deep dive into their tape and come to my own conclusion as to who I think is the guy. Especially, we also got to see, well, what's the coach going to be like and what kind of scheme does the coach run? That's also got to factor into the decision, I think, a little bit as well. But just to answer your question, as of right now, based on what I have seen from Fields, I will be a very happy man if in April the Jets pick him, and I know for sure that Sam Darnold is out of here. I will be very.
Yeah, that's right. It's not to say that I didn't like Zach Wilson. I came away very impressed with Zach Wilson as well. You know, the arm angles, the quick release, the accuracy, everything was there. The biggest concern I have with Wilson is durability. He looks very slight, you know. It's not to say he can't come into the pros and gain, 15 to 20 pounds, but that might be a 2-year project for him to pack on the kind of muscle, I'm envisioning him packing on. And I have concerns about his durability, with injury. Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
It's about it's about the coaches that they bring in. Fields, I want it more half read. I want it more of a spread type offense, simplify it for him. I want more RPOs because, like you said, he's not the explosive athlete that Lamar Jackson is, but he also might break a tackle or two more because he has more weight on him. But the strengths I've written down, I'm not into all of them, but the athleticism, the arm, the running. The way he gets his hips into throws and generates throw power. A lot of people will talk about, oh, well, he floats balls up there. He doesn't have a good arm. He was off balance, off platform, throwing 61 yards against Clemson. Like, don't question the arm strength. The lateral athleticism, the contact balance, the power. He has a lot. He has a lot of traits. He also has some weaknesses. Locking onto reads. There are times where he is a little bit inaccurate. There's times he locks out his front foot and doesn't allow his weight to transfer, and it leads to him ripping the ball. There's a lot of things to get into. I like Fields a lot. It depends greatly on who the coach is. Listen, he had a lot of inconsistencies in his game for me. I like Wilson as a number 2 guy right now. I'm not going to let it affect me. But if he comes out versus Bama and he does that again, it's going to be hard not to put him above because, listen, his ceiling is immaculately high, where Wilson has a high ceiling, but it's not as high as Fields. Now, Wilson, the durability stuff, he needs to add a couple of pounds. I know he's probably like 6'1", 6'1.5", probably like 205, 210. I don't care what it's. That's right. So I do want to see him add some more weight, but I think obviously Lawrence is the one, and these guys are 2A, 2B. I'm happy with either one of them, but we'll get into that a ton this offseason. Bernard, anything else you want to comment on?
Yes, I just want to say I look forward to your overall analysis once you get into the quarterbacks and take a look at the prospect. I look forward to taking a look at your video and get your perspective on it overall. And I appreciate you for taking my call, and thank you very much, and you take care.
Awesome. Thank you, Bernard.
Thanks, Bernard. Have a good day.
All right, now. You too now.
Yeah, we're getting a ton of comments, and I know a lot of people are talking in the chat, like, Fields. Listen, I'll have lists of strengths and weaknesses, and I'll break them down, and all this stuff. There's so much to get into with these guys. You almost start to swim a little bit with some of the things that I'm thinking about with him. He does have inconsistencies though. The progressions, the big windows, the pockets he had, his tendency to kind of dip his eyes and run. At times, his wide base, he's a little bit inaccurate. His touch throws are a little bit concerning at times. I think he needs to be in a spread rhythm, shotgun based offense with a lot of RPOs, a lot of read option. I don't think he's a guy you really want in a play action heavy system with his eyes turning back to the defense a lot, because he hasn't shown he can process. Now, if he could continue with what he did against Clemson, where he's going through his reads, smooth footwork, his transitional footwork from read to read was good. His ability to fire the ball, read leverage was really positive in that game. So if he can continue that against the, obviously a powerhouse in Bama, then I'll be really encouraged. And there are flashes of it. So I like Fields. I like the ceiling of Fields, but I think he needs the right coach, where I think Wilson is a little bit more scheme diverse for me. So if they bring in, a coach who is heavy on RPOs and half field reads and shotgun and things like that, and I will review those things as soon as they're hired. Like, give me a week or two to really review the offense. Then we'll see who I prefer. We're getting a lot of comments. I think we have a super chat. So if you want your comment 100% answered, definitely throw a super chat in there, because there's 264 people in here, so I can't read all this. I appreciate the hell out of you guys for being in here for sure. Do you think you go wrong picking either Wilson or Fields? It depends on who the coach is, but I like both of them. I wouldn't be mad at either pick. Let's get into the next caller, Kyle. Actually, do you have anything to comment on that before we get into the next caller real quick?
No, we're good. Go to the next one.
Okay. It says Roshan want to talk about drafting either offensive line or Fields. Okay, let's see what this is. Roshan, if I'm pronouncing your name right, or if it picked it up right. What's up, man? Yo, Roshan.
You there, Roshan?
All right, and that is it. Dropped it. Okay. No host connection. Please connect to the host. You can say we got to check that out. I don't know why that did that. I should be okay. So yeah, ton of stuff in the chat. Anything else? Zach Wilson only put together one good season. His prior stats are crazy. Yeah. The thing with Zach Wilson is, I watched his 2019, Kyle, and I don't know why people weren't talking about him in 2019, to be completely honest. I was impressed with the 2019 film. I don't care about the stats. I don't care about anything, but what he was showing in 2019, I was pretty damn impressed. I'm surprised he was such like a just out of the blue prospect that came out of nowhere, because he was pretty impressive. In my opinion, some people,
a lot of it probably has to do with the school.
Yeah, a lot of people talking about just drafting Sewell. Listen, again, we need a quarterback. That's first and foremost. I don't think a new coach is like, yeah, you know what? Again, locking me into this 4th-year quarterback who is clearly damaged at this point and has not lived up to his draft, hype, regardless of coach, anything like that. And draft a tackle, and let's ignore the most important position in sports. I called back. Okay, hold on. Let me see here. Let's see. Talk. Hopefully it'll come up here. Roshan, can you hear me? All right. I'll try to fix that in a second. Kyle, let's get. I gotta fix the phone line apparently. So let's get into the next topic. While I do that, I apologize to the callers. I will try to fix that in 2 seconds. I just got to queue up something to talk about so I can fix it.
You can give me something.
Options at 2. The whole trade down thing. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think there's any possibility of the Jets trading down, taking a guy like Trask, taking a guy like Mac Wilson, taking a guy like, whoever else it might be?
All right, let me handle this, because I got strong opinions on this. And Joey, you can figure out. You're the mastermind behind this. You can figure out the tech side of stuff. All right, here's the deal, guys. I know that trading down is sexy. You can build a powerhouse. You get a ton of picks. That's listen, football is a team game. It is the biggest team game more so than anything. It is kind of stupid to think that a team can just win just because they have a good quarterback. There's a reason why Aaron Rodgers only has one Super Bowl. There's a reason why Drew Brees only has one Super Bowl. There's a reason why Peyton Manning played for as long as he did and didn't get his second Super Bowl until his final year. Yes, football is a team game. All right. So yes, trading back helps you get a ton of picks. You got a ton of guys on cheap contracts. You got a ton of young, hungry guys who haven't packed it in yet. It is a sexy thing to do. That is if you already have your answer at quarterback. The Jets most certainly do not. There is no way. I mean, listen, I'm open to hearing arguments, but as I replied to Joe's Twitter yesterday, Joe sent out a tweet and he said something like, I don't remember exactly what he said, but I said the only arguments that the pro Darnold people even had was it's all Gase's fault. Well, listen, it's not all Gase's fault. A lot of it's Gase's fault. Sure. There's no doubt about that a lot of it's Gase's fault. But a lot of it's just Darnold's fault. He missed a ton of open guys, and none of you guys can deny that Flacco played better than Darnold did. All right, so the Jets don't have the answer at quarterback. That means you need to take a quarterback at 2. Now, listen, I haven't done a deep dive yet to this point, but I'm telling you what, I have a lot of all 22 film. So does Joe. Everyone at Jets X Factor does. So we're going to do a huge deep dive into these guys. But the early returns on the tape that we have watched is that these guys do have special attributes. They could develop into a good starting franchise quarterback, which Sam Darnold is most certainly not. Now, the thing is even if you do, like the good thing about Darnold is you could still trade him and probably get a second rounder and even more. So you're still getting assets from him. All right. So you have, but because of the Jamal Adams trade, because of the Leonard Williams, hopefully potential deal, because of other trades that Joe Douglas has made, because of cap space, you still have a lot of other ways that you can fill up this decrepit roster. And the best way that you're going to do elevate talent on this team is to get good quarterback play. And hopefully that's one of these guys in the draft. The Jets have to take a quarterback at 2, guys. Yes. Can you win games with a bad quarterback? You can. There's a reason why the Bears went 12-4 a couple years ago. But did they sustain that success? No. One of the easiest ways to sustain success is good quarterback play. Deshaun Watson has a terrible situation around him, but he is a great quarterback at this point in time. I know Joe and I probably aren't as high on him as some other people are, but he's still very good. And Joe and I would not even deny that. He is very good. And man, if he were on a good team right now, his team would be a Super Bowl team. So of course it goes beyond that, but the Jets need to take a quarterback at 2. There's no way that you can gamble on year 4 of Darnold. You can't. It's just, you give me an example of a quarterback that's played for 3 years, for 30 something games, almost 40 games. Maybe it is even over 40 games. No, it's 40 something games, whatever Darnold has played. He's played 13 each year, I think. So about 40 games. You show me a guy that has not only statistically, but the film as bad as Darnold did, and then he made this massive turnaround. Now, I will say this, and I said this about Josh Allen in tweets recently. Yes, did I think even in the offseason, and whoever criticized me on Twitter, you're right. Egg on my face. I looked like an ass over the summer for saying that Darnold's better than Allen. I did. I look stupid for that. But one thing I can say about Josh Allen that I cannot say for Darnold, and I could even say this in the summer, is Josh Allen every year from college to the pros has gotten better every single year. Darnold has not been on that linear improvement like Josh Allen did. So Darnold would be a much bigger gamble. Anyway,
what do you think they get for yeah, I'm trying to fix it. I apologize. We have people, Roshan, we have a guy from, we have people from Mexico. We got people from Brooklyn.
Oh, wow.
So I'm trying to fix it, or we're trying to work on it. So to stay patient, maybe we can fix it, maybe not. The call-in studio, we got to figure out a new system because it just loses connection. We can't connect you guys to this show. So we're working on it. But yeah, what do you think they get for Darnold? A lot of people are talking about that. A lot of people argue, do they get a second and a fifth? Do they get a third? You know, some people talk about late first early in the season. I'm leaning to a 2 and probably a 5 or a 6 right now. Where are you at with that?
I think it would probably be something like that too. I mean, listen, that's what Schefter said a couple months ago, and Darnold has done nothing. I mean, he's played a lot of games since then, and he has shown no improvement. I mean, he showed a couple flashes here or there. One of the best throws probably in his career was that touchdown to Herndon yesterday. I don't know if you agree with that. Probably in his top 10 throws as a Jet, I would assume.
Yeah.
Anyway, he hasn't really done that much to make teams say, wow, this guy, we should spend a first rounder on him. But someone tweeted out yesterday, I can't remember who, that there would be at least 10 teams that would be interested in him. So could there be some type of bidding war? But I cannot imagine a team wanting to give up a first rounder for him. Maybe if this was after his rookie year, and we can make that comparison to Josh Rosen. But remember, Josh Rosen was traded after his rookie year. He still had 3 full years on his contract with the potential 5th-year option.
Mm-hmm.
Darnold doesn't have that luxury. All right. So it would be hard for me to see the Jets getting a first rounder for him. Really, 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 really hard.
Yeah. I think we have it fixed. Roshan, if you can hear me, hopefully you can. Hopefully we figured this out. Roshan, can you hear me?
Hey guys.
Perfect.
Hey, we hear you.
How you doing?
Yeah, sorry for the technical difficulties. But at least we got,
you're good. I appreciate you taking the time to actually get me on. So thanks, guys.
So what's up, man?
Want to do a quick So I just want to prefix with, I do think Sam Darnold is damaged goods, and obviously he's not the future. But I mean, and you guys definitely steer me correct when I say this, but in my opinion, I think for the draft, at least for the first pick, I know that a whole entire offense quarterback is the number one main important thing. But that offensive line, man, if we picked up Swell and moved him over to guard on the left guard, and we have the most explosive left side in football, and we get a run-heavy, dominant offense going on, yeah, Sam Darnold still won't be our future. We get him until his contract ends, and then we worry about that moving forward. But Mark Sanchez had a line that brought him to 2 AFC championships. The Buffalo Bills worked their way inside out throughout their draft and their free agency before Josh Allen came onto the field. So with an extremely, looking at next year's teams that we're facing, it's pretty easy in comparison. Of course, saying once again, I want Sam Darnold to be the future, but I think we should play his contract out while we at least create a solid line in the trenches for the next guy to come.
I get your point, but my only question, and it's the most important question, is if you don't want Darnold as the future, and we're not going to win with Darnold, because regardless of how good the offensive line is, it's super rare to win without a quarterback who's at least above average. Trent Dilfer's the only one I can think of who's a bad quarterback, but he was also with one of the most elite defenses of all time in the Ravens. So you're pushing quarterback down the road. So who's going to be the quarterback in 2022 and 2023? And if there's any ifs, ends, maybes, but trade up, if there's any of that, then that can't be the answer. So what is your answer of who's going to be the future quarterback then?
That's where Joe Douglas makes his money, right? But being within the trenches and creating a good atmosphere for a quarterback to thrive. If we get a new guy in here, same type of deal might happen to him where he has no support around him to save him from getting smashed. And the free agency market looks like nobody really ever wants to come to the Jets, typically. So we're going to have to be overpaying in free agency just to get guys on board. So that's why I'm saying, I'm thinking 7 to 10 years within longevity. I want 7 to 10 years of stability on that line. But once again, I've been getting a lot of trash for this opinion. So it's just
Kyle, continue, but we can steer him right. Go ahead.
Listen, Joe Douglas can help out a guy, but Joe Douglas cannot, turn talent out of nowhere. He can't get blood from a stone, right? Kyle Shanahan can make Nick Mullins looks serviceable at times, but Nick Mullins is still Nick Mullins at the end of the day, and he's going to look bad because he's just not that talented, right? So Joe Douglas could create a situation like the Bears had 2 years ago where Mitch Trubisky, looks serviceable at times, but at the end of the day, he's still Mitch Trubisky. And listen, you can still improve the offensive line.
What about Jared Goff going to the Super Bowl? Do you hold value in Jared Goff as a quarterback? Because I don't.
I liked Jared Goff coming out of college. I thought he would be better than what he is. Jared Goff can throw the football, but he sucks in many other ways. I wouldn't want to bank on Jared Goff. I would not. And that's why I'm saying quarterback's important. And Goff didn't win a Super Bowl. He put up 3 points in that Super Bowl.
Pushing quarterback down the road is never the answer. I'd rather push offensive line down the road, because getting up from 14, 15 next year to get the number 2 overall pick when they know we're going to be drafting a quarterback, they're absolutely going to bend us over a barrel to get for us to trade up that much. Again, you don't know what's happening next year. You don't know who the quarterbacks are going to be. You don't know the situation is at all. And to say, hey, new head coach, we're going to bring you in with a quarterback who we're probably not going to run with the next 10, 15 years, hopefully. I don't think it's a situation that a coach wants to come into. And listen, if you really want to upgrade the offensive line, you're talking about people not wanting to come to the Jets in free agency, but this is a free agency where the Jets are really they're going to benefit a lot, because not a lot of teams have cap space to be able to sign guys. So the Jets are going to, kind of be like the least ugly girl in the room in some situations, I guess you can kind of say. They have a ton of room. They have a ton of draft picks. So why can't you sign a Tooney? Why can't you sign a Sheriff? And then why can't you draft a Wyatt Davis with the second pick? Like a first round guard is not good enough. And then you're looking at an offensive line with Becton, with Fant, who is a little bit below average to average. You have McGovern, who's about average. You have a first round pick and a guard. You could take another guard in the second round. Like, you have plenty of assets to be able to build the offensive line. So
by the way, at right tackle, is Fant the best right tackle that we've had since Damian Woody?
Easily. Who else have we had? Breno Giacomini and all these trash guys. Yeah, that's pretty easy.
I mean, definitely.
So, I don't want to get like people are saying in the chat, you don't get cute with quarterback. You got to figure out quarterback. It's not a position you say, we'll figure it out later and we'll draft this offensive lineman, because Sewell might be great, but there's offensive linemen coming out who were good every year. Look at last year. You had 4 guys who were almost top 10 picks. So if you really like a guy next year, you want to trade up, that's a lot more feasible than trading up to get a quarterback, when quarterback's completely a position that's so hard to get. It's not something you just want to push down the road, in my opinion. So.
And here's one thing I'll say about quarterbacks too. Like, sure, a lot of times in the draft, is the first quarterback drafted, is he always the best one? No, not always. Josh Allen looks to be the best one, and he was taken 7th overall. There was 2 quarterbacks taken before him. But it is easy. It's a lot easier to find a good starting offensive lineman in much later rounds than it is to find quarterback. It is very rare that you're getting a 6th-round quarterback like Tom Brady that is elite. Like, you look at most of the starters in the NFL, they're first-round picks. Just look at most of the starters in the NFL at quarterback. It is, yes, there are the miraculous stories. There are the Russell Wilsons. Those are few and far between. All right. And Joe brought up Joe Tooney. From what we hear, the Jets and Joe Douglas love Joe Tooney, and take this for what it's worth. But Mike Reese, longtime Patriots ESPN beat reporter, he took a picture of Joe Tooney sitting in the Patriots midfield logo, just soaking it all in at the end of the game. Listen, they franchised Joe Tooney.
Listen, if they don't franchise tag him,
I don't think they will, because if they franchise him again, this is the 2nd year in a row, that cap hit's going to be a lot bigger this year.
Close to like $20 million for a guard.
So I think he's going to walk. Belichick does let players walk all the time. I would say the Jets will probably be the favorites to land him. I think so. And if not him, Scherf.
I'm gonna
go ahead.
I was gonna say, I'm gonna let you guys wrap up and go. But I appreciate you, Kyle and Joe. But the one thing before I let you go, what do you want to do with that 2nd pick in the first round? Sorry.
Yeah. I'm gonna put you into the queue now. Just hang out from there. If you want, Rashawn. Definitely appreciate the call, but for whatever reason, when I drop people, apparently it screws up. So I definitely appreciate the call, and hopefully you call in soon again. But just to
always, man, I appreciate what y'all do for us.
Awesome.
For the tough season.
Yeah, that's especially watching the film for hours and hours. It's absolutely brutal. So Kyle,
my dog's name is Jet, so he thinks every Sunday I'm yelling at him. So
give him some more treats. Sorry, I returned the queue a little bit early. Just hang out from there if you want. For the 2nd pick, listen, and there's like 300 people in the chat. That's freaking awesome. We've recently started doing this, so let's keep that up. And especially once the Jets get good and people actually want to know about the film of these guys, hopefully we continue. But the 2nd pick, it really depends on the free agency. I'm a guy who wants to I want to look at the draft and see what's not strong on the draft. The edge rusher position, I don't think is very strong in the draft. So that's a position I want to address in free agency. There's guys out there like, a Judon or Ngakwe who I think are going to be a little bit overpaid for what they actually are, but it's a position I want to lock down. So I want to look at the deep positions in the draft and kind of push that off maybe a little bit in free agency. But at the same time, I also want to overspend a little bit in free agency towards the offense because I don't want to risk that in the draft. So I think edge rusher is an absolute need in free agency. But I think interior offensive line with a bit Tooney or Sheriff, if they got to overpay for a Tooney or Sheriff and you go into the draft, okay, listen, we have Tooney, we have Becton, we have Fant, we have McGovern. We might have a below average guy or a bad guy in Greg Van Roten who you could address either in the third, fourth round or whatever, or if you are sitting at that second, first round pick and a Wyatt Davis is there and you take him and then boom, your offensive line is freaking stacked. But I don't want to be in a position where we have to take or reach for a guard with the the second, first round pick or the second round pick or the third round pick. So I really want to address offense hard. There's a couple corners there, Eric Stokes of the world, who might be there. But again, the draft is so fluid. The offseason is so fluid that I'm not going to say, oh, I want this guy, or this guy. Cause I think a lot of people just go into mock drafts, see who's there and then say, oh, I want that guy because he plays a position I want, So, but I'm going to say just in terms of free agency, and we'll talk about this a little bit later. I want to hit offense hard because it's not something I want to reach for because it's absolutely a necessity for the new quarterback to come in. Quick thoughts, Kyle, and we'll get into the next two callers who we're on. And a lot of people are welcome. NY Sports MC. I think I've seen him in the Jets Talk 24/7 channel. So this is your first time checking it out. I appreciate it. And NY Sports, Dark, Jovan, Shadow Maniac, everybody who's in here. I appreciate all the 300 people who are in here. But what's your thoughts?
I completely agree with you, man. It might sound crazy. I don't think if you're Joe Douglas, you're thinking that, especially if you're going to go the route of rookie quarterback, no rookie quarterback has ever won a Super Bowl. First year starters like Tom Brady have won a Super Bowl, but he wasn't a rookie, technically speaking. So I think if you're Joe Douglas, you're not thinking that you're actually going to legit compete for a Super Bowl next year. Maybe making a playoff push. I mean, that's certainly possible. We've seen quick turnarounds in the NFL. So it might sound crazy, but I'm saying, like, dude, you might not sign even one big name free agent on defense. Like, literally, if I was the GM and it meant that I could sign 1 to 2 really good starting quality offensive linemen and get like a good receiver, like an Allen Robinson or whatever. Dude. And basically that's a big portion of my cash flow. If that means that I don't sign, any big time defensive players, then so be it, because exactly. I want to help my young quarterback.
Exactly.
That's what it's all about. That's what the Jets didn't do with Darnold.
Like you said, they're not winning a Super Bowl this year. So yeah, do I like people bring up like Surtain and all these guys, the corner from Bama. But listen, are we going to be mad right now if they draft Wilson or Fields at number 2? They bring in Tooney, they bring in Robinson. Their second first round pick is Wyatt Davis, and then their second freaking pick is who's that? Who's the freaking the receiver from Ohio State who just went off? Who's like a low?
Olave, Chris Olave.
Like if they bring in Robinson, they let Perriman walk. They have Robinson, Crowder, Olave, Mims. They bring in Tooney. Then they have Wyatt Davis. Like, I don't overload on offense. We can figure out defense next year. Now, obviously, if they're sitting at the second first round pick and you have a guy like Surtain there and he's rated an A for that spot, and you have a guy in, let's say, Bateman or whoever, again, I don't know what their rankings, anything like that. I'm not speaking specifically on guys and my thoughts on them, but if you have Bateman there who's a B and Surtain there who's an A, take Surtain. But that's why free agency is so important, that we need to overload on offense and free agency to not force ourselves in a position in the draft. But if they spend everything on offense, I don't give a shit, because that's what they need to do. They need to do it. Like, look at Mark Sanchez's first couple of years with his offensive line, number 1 offensive line, number 1 running game, good receivers, like a decent quarterback. Even Darnold in his first couple of years would have absolutely thrived with that team. Sanchez couldn't because he's trash.
Yeah. What an indictment. I was about to say, what an indictment on Mark Sanchez. That just goes to show how bad he was.
Yeah. Super chat. Appreciate it. Lewis Atilas. I'll read the super chats as soon as they come in. Unless we have a caller online.
By the way, I can't think of one thing that Sanchez did well in his game other than throw a slant route. He could throw a pretty good slant route off play action. That's about it.
Who'd you say was that?
Mark Sanchez. What could he do well other than sell a good play action fake, which Darnold can't do?
Be on the cover of GQ magazine?
Yeah.
let's see, Lewis, what's your dream coaching staff? And if you were Joe D, who is your guy? I'm really more concerned about the OC and DC. Maybe thoughts on Dan Quinn at DC. What are your thoughts on that, Kyle?
Yeah, I wouldn't want Dan Quinn at DC. Notice how much better the defense played after he left.
That's not a good indictment on the coach who's a defensive guy when his defense gets better.
Exactly. And like he was part of the Legion of Boom. But again, though, that was Pete Carroll's defense, and they had amazing talent there. So
eat a hot dog on the sideline. Chris Turner says, yeah, he's good at that. He almost, well, is he really that good? He got caught. Yeah. But yeah, for dream coach, I would say, like, and we're gonna get into this a lot more in later on in the show. We have a ton of topics we're getting into. But I really like Campbell's. I really like, not Campbell's, but Campbell, or the Campbells of the world. I like Fitzgerald. I like the leaders. I know a lot of people like to talk about the offensive guys. Oh, Bieniemy. Joe Brady, all this stuff. The Jets have gone that route the last couple of years. Rex Ryan, the new hot coordinator.
Define leader. Define what you mean by leader, because we're hearing
a guy who is a program builder, who is proven at whether it be the NFL level or the college level, a guy who has turned around a program. Pat Fitzgerald completely turned around Northwestern. Now they're respected, going to bowl games. You have Matt Campbell, who turned around Iowa State, is now going to play in bigger games and things like that. So I want a guy who is a program builder and not just a new hot coordinator, because we've had that with Rex, we had that with Bowles, and these guys, they might be great as an OC or DC, but OC, DC, and head coach are completely different. So you might be able to coach a great offense as Joe Brady, but what happens when you have to manage an entire team full of grown men? Like, what are you going to do? Are you going to cave? Are you going to only focus on one side of the ball? I want a guy who's an overseer and who's not coming, and players who are not coming out with quotes and saying that, Adam Gase doesn't even talk to the defense, or Rex Ryan doesn't even talk to the offense, or Todd Bowles doesn't pay attention to the offense. Like, I want a guy. I want the John Harbaughs, who's the overseer of the team, and it relies on the OCDC, and kind of, I guess what I'm trying to say, but it relies on them to coach that side of the ball so they can be the overseer. So I like guys like Campbell. I like guys like Fitz. I've warmed up a little bit to Wink Martindale because of some of the staff that he's talked about, bringing in a guy like Elliott from Clemson, to coach the offense, and Marvin Lewis as a defensive coordinator. Now, listen, people might go crazy about Marvin Lewis. I don't want him as a head coach, but a guy who brought the Bengals consistently competing for playoff spots, good defense, obviously is familiar with Wink Martindale and the Ravens. Bring him in as a leader of the defense, to oversee that defense, and who is a successful coach. Obviously didn't win the Super Bowl and things like that, but
he was part of the 2000 Ravens.
Yeah, exactly. We got another super chat. So those are some of my top guys.
By the way, it was a great answer, Joe. And when you said leader, I was hoping, and I didn't think you'd give me this BS answer, but that you weren't going to say something like a guy who gives good speeches and motivates players, because that is so overrated at the NFL level.
Oh yeah,
if you're a player making millions
of the world, like,
yeah,
go ahead. No.
If you're a player making millions of dollars and you're a professional athlete and you're literally on the field with guys that could take your damn head off, you don't need speech. You don't
need that eat the W speech.
Yeah, you shouldn't need speeches and stuff to get you motivated.
Yeah, so that's a problem. That's a problem.
I think as fans, because that shit is so easy to see, you can see that stuff in a team highlight clip that they post on Twitter after the game, or you can see that on the sideline. Yeah. We as fans, we oftentimes associate that with being a good coach, but that is so overrated. So when you said leader, I didn't think that you meant that, but
the disrespect of my own podcast.
When some people do say that term leader, that's what they mean.
Yeah. No. I want a program builder. I want a guy who's approachable. I want a guy who can talk to grown men. And that's like my problem with, like, you hear some conflicting things about Bieniemy. Like, yeah, he's a rah guy. Great. He's under Andy Reid, who's one of the best offensive coaches of all time. So what is he going to do on the Jets? The Joe Brady's guy's like 31 years old. Is he going to be able to tell guys like whoever, a 35-year-old running back or 37-year-old running back, like, gore your bench? Like, how is that going to work? Like, I don't just OC, DC, great. Let's just pick the top 5 guys from each coordinator from each team and just say there can be a great head coach if that's what you want in a head coach. But I want the program builder. That's what I absolutely want, first and foremost. And, like, again, Wink Martindale might not be my number one guy, but if he's bringing Tony Elliott, successful Clemson offense for years, and you're bringing a guy like Marvin Lewis, I'll sign up for that right now, because you have other guys out there who we'll talk about in a little bit in the future who scared the shit of me as well. So, Let's see. We have another super chat. I'll answer that real quick. Then we'll get into the phone calls. We have a couple on the board. People also forget that you could still trade down at other draft spots besides the number 2 pick. Listen, I know people want to accumulate assets. The Jets have 2 first-round picks next year that people want to think about. 2 this year, 2 seconds if you trade for Darnold. 2 2/3, 2 fourths if Leonard Williams gets signed, which it seems like it will. $80+ million in cap space in the offseason where cap space is going to mean the most that it ever has in the history of the NFL, because teams are so strapped and not a lot of teams can throw around money. So they have plenty of assets. Let's not just say, oh, we'll just trade down because we need more stuff. No, you take the quarterback. You need the quarterback. Don't push it down the road.
Yeah. By the way, just to give an idea of how valuable a quarterback is, the Chiefs would not give up Patrick Mahomes for 10 first-round picks.
No,
they wouldn't.
No way.
Guys, I mean, that's the argument right there. And I'm not saying that Fields or Wilson can be Patrick Mahomes, because the odds of them becoming Patrick Mahomes are like so minuscule. Yeah. But if they could even get in his stratosphere with their level of talent, that's the type of impact that a good quarterback can have to a team.
Some people are talking about tight end, the tight end at the end of the first round, like Feberflus or the hell his name is, or early second. Listen, any offensive weapons, that's fine. Somebody asked us about the Williams kid, the running back from North Carolina. This is not a channel where I'm going to go and just Google his scouting report and recite those things, because I think it's really kind of dumb, especially if people do respect the film aspects of the show. So you'll get opinions of them if they're drafted or if I watch their stuff before, obviously. But any running backs, tight ends, they're not necessarily the premium positions I necessarily want. Tight ends, I think it could make a big impact. But yeah, any offensive position, I'm not gonna kill. Let's see. A couple callers. This is Felicia from Mexico, so this might be a prank caller. If you are, get a life. But if this is actually Felicia who wants to speak about something, then what's up?
What an assumption.
I don't know, man. Felicia from Mexico.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. What's up, man?
Oh yeah, I'm Federico, not Felicia. Probably you have a text recognition.
Okay.
Federico.
Okay, perfect. What's up, man?
Hey, what's up? Thank you for having me here.
Yeah, no problem, man. What do you? I see you want to talk about something about the head coach. I believe it picked up in the audio.
Yeah, I was wondering if there's any way we could get like a heads up of what we're going to do in the draft, depending on what coach we hire. Like, I know if we get Greg Roman, we're probably going to go with Fields, but are there other combinations that you might say that if we go with Campbell, we're going to get Wilson or something like that?
Yeah, and this is something I'll definitely look into. Again, it depends on the system. Like if it's a spread type system with a lot of RPO, a lot of read option, again, which I will review, I think they'll probably lean towards Fields. If it's an offense like a Kyle Shanahan, play action, turn your back a lot to the defense, a little bit more processing that takes place, I think it's going to be a Wilson. So it really depends on who the coordinator is and what offense they're going to run. A Clemson guy might like Fields. We don't really know yet because we haven't really seen their offenses. And I don't want to just say, okay, well, if they bring in Brandon Stanley, the Rams defensive coordinator, he likes Justin Fields. I think that Fields right now is probably more the consensus number 2 for a lot of people. So I think the Jets might be leaning that way.
Joe, what do you think about if Dayball was the Jets hire, who the Jets are planning to interview him? He's a very sexy name right now. And look at what he's done with Josh Allen. Beautiful. Who do you think he would prefer?
Just because of the similarities between Fields and Josh Allen, like you're talking about guys in college who struggled going through reads, physical freaks in certain aspects. The spread offense that they ran more of with the Buffalo Bills this year really aided Josh Allen, simplified his reads, things like that, spread out the defense. Listen, you can disguise a lot of defense when it's condensed formations. When you spread guys out, it's hard to disguise a lot of stuff, and it really helped Josh Allen out a lot from what I saw when he played the Jets twice. So I think that he would lean more towards a Fields because he's more similar of a quarterback to a Josh Allen. And I think he'd be really, really great. Like that's like one of my number 1 pairings of guys.
What about Joe Brady then?
I don't know enough about his offense. I haven't watched enough about his offense.
I agree. I agree.
I've watched a lot of Panthers.
This is kind of why I'm asking you, because I figured you might know more than me, but at this point, is it Frederica or I forgot your name, exactly how to pronounce it.
Oh, just call me Fed.
Yeah, okay. Fed or
Fed.
Fred?
Yeah.
Okay.
FED.
Fed. Yeah. So, I guess at this point whoever the coach ends up being, I can rest assure you that Joe is going to dive into that film immediately, like a psychopath that he is, and start to really dissect it. And then he's going to start to give opinions really early on about which quarterback would probably, in his opinion, more suited to what that coach might want to do.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
so
like I said,
it's still a little early on. I mean, right now, like Joe could drive himself nuts trying to dive into the film of all these coaching candidates, but the Jets probably might interview 10 guys. So
Fed, I don't know if you're newer to the channel or if you've been watching a lot or whatever, whatever. The Jets lost the number 2 pick, about 2 weeks ago. And I already have about 250 plays recorded of Zach Wilson and Fields. So you'll get plenty of the offenses and who I think fits and all that stuff. I think for the people who do respect the film work we do, I do on this channel, it's irresponsible to say, oh, well, this equals this. It's just, I don't know yet. Unfortunately, I do have a full-time job, so I can't watch all 32 teams and all these coaches and things like that. But is there anything else you want to add? And definitely,
I got to ask,
especially from Mexico too.
I got to ask, Fed, were you born and raised in Mexico?
Yeah, I lived in Boston for 2 years.
Okay, so
and
that's
I'm 24 years old, so I started watching the Jets when Mark Sanchez was a quarterback, and I just instantly liked the Jets because
Mexican heritage. Well, unfortunately, he wasn't very good, but
I know.
Yeah, Thad, we really appreciate you calling in. Is there anything else you want to add before we get to some other callers? And I really appreciate you calling, especially from another country. I don't know how the hell you heard about us, but I definitely appreciate it.
The internet, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I just popped up on YouTube looking for like Rich Cimini stuff I was watching, and they popped up. And
oh, cool,
really
man.
been a fan of the content like halfway through the season.
Okay, awesome, man. I appreciate you calling. And hopefully we'll talk to you again soon.
Yeah, thank you.
That was
okay.
Cool.
Yeah, dude. Hey, listen, I think it's awesome too, obviously. And I don't want to just assume that he likes Sanchez because they share a heritage or whatever, but sticking with the Jets the next 10 years, like if you became a fan in 09 and these are your first 10 years of the Jets, woof, woof. It is getting better though. It definitely will.
Joe Douglas, he's the man to save us.
Internet makes the world small dribble. It's not the 80s. All right, Dark. You disappear for 2 weeks and you're talking shit in chat over there. You better watch yourself. Mitchell, and I want to hear to talk to
Trubisky?
Mitch. No, I think that might be his name. Mitchell, what is up?
Hello.
Hey, what's up?
I just wanted to know if you guys think Justin Fields will be on the team.
Okay, well, thank you for calling. Thank you for calling it. Yeah, go ahead, Kyle.
I would say there's a decent chance of it. I would say there's probably at least a 50% chance. How does that sound, Joe?
Okay, thank you.
50% chance, Joe? Does that sound about right, Justin Fields?
Yeah, I would probably lean more towards like 65, 70, just because of how highly touted he was. Joe Douglas seems to be a guy who
the reason why I'm saying 50 is because there is still the uncertainty that maybe they try to make a run for Stafford. Maybe they would try to trade back. I mean, it's not just him and Wilson. That's why I'm saying 50. Like
you're playing the field. You're playing the field a little bit.
Yeah.
You're playing the field against Fields. Really stupid. So yeah,
stick to football analysis.
I guess
go to comedy.
50. My mom tells me I'm funny, Kyle. No, yeah, I think 50%. Mitchell, is there anything else you wanted to add? Obviously, there's a good chance. I would say more. It's probably the most realistic scenario that the Jets land him, but we have so much to go with draft medical evaluations. There's so many different things, interviews. Like he could be great on the field and come in an interview and be like an arrogant prick who they're never going to take at the number 2 pick.
Apparently he's very likable because they did like a Netflix series on him or whatever, and he came.
I gotta watch that.
Yeah, if they draft him, I'll definitely watch that. I'll say that.
Mitchell, is there anything else you want to add? We got a couple of callers on the line.
No, I'm good.
Okay, perfect.
Thanks, Mitchell.
Yeah, young kid. Clearly, hopefully he continues to dive deep into the Jets, and hopefully his young years as a Jets fan are much better than mine because mine sucked. So moving on.
When you say young, you were going to back-to-back AFC title games.
Well, if that was your first exposure to the Jets in the last couple of years, would you trade those 2 AFC championship appearances for the last 10 years of just absolute shit? No.
I don't know, man. Those 2 years were pretty fun.
They were. Holy crap. Okay, we got a ton of callers. We're gonna have to hit you guys pretty quick. Jack, to talk about the Jets head coach. Jack, what's up?
Hey, what's up? So I heard you're kind of down on Joe Brady and all these guys.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to, my thing is, there's a difference between this like often, and I don't know Joe Brady personally. I don't know any of these guys personally. And obviously you get an interview with them. You can probably tell, like you get Adam Gase an interview, even in the first press conference, he goes, I don't know. I'm not going to do anything with the defense. Give me the head coach of the defense. There's a difference between that guy and Rex Ryan, who say, I'm not going to do anything with the offense. Those guys who say, this is my specialty and I don't care for the other side of the ball. And, other guys who have a specialty in a certain area but also have their hands on the entire football team.
Okay, so you're kind of you're hedging. You like Joe Brady, you're saying, but listen, the thing.
Well, yeah.
But can I bring up a counterpoint to that? Because a lot of people, when they watch the one Jets drives and all that stuff, and I'm assuming you're a Jets fan, a lot of people were impressed with Adam Gase and how he spoke about the team, and he was a good interview. I know the first interview didn't go well. Maybe he was on coke or something like that. But overall, generally, people like his interviews and he's smart. Maybe he will. Like people watch the one Jets drive of him watching tape. Like maybe he can turn this offense around. Like he's talking about using Bell in different ways and looking at how Bell was used in Pittsburgh and all that stuff. So a lot of people actually like the way he interviewed. So it's not like I watch those interviews and if I had background information, obviously it might cloud my judgment of him. But watching those interviews, if I didn't have anything based about him other than that, I'd be like, okay, he seems like a pretty smart dude. So I can't.
He does a lot better when there's not a lot of pressure on him. Like he crumbles under pressure.
It's pretty easy to give interview stock answers. Like if you guys brought up 20 questions and I had a minute to think about it, I could answer those questions too. Like you don't want to pour everything in you have into interview questions because it's all stock answers. Like they're not going to really say what they're necessarily thinking. So yeah, he might say, I'm going to be involved in the defense, but a 31-year-old guy who's come up so quickly from college to the NFL level, who's never turned a program around, always been kind of an assistant to program builders. What proves it to you that he could be that guy? Like I'm not saying he's a bad option. He's just not my number one.
Let me just say this about Joe Brady, and I do not know that much about him. I know the stats from his time, his 1 year as like a legit, coordinator in college, which he made the jump from the NFL back to college as a coordinator and just lit the world on fire. And then LSU hasn't been the same since. Joe Brady's younger than me. He's about 2 months younger than me, So that's one thing. I'm 31. Anyway, but so the one thing, the concern that I have with Joe Brady is he's only spent time as a coordinator in the NFL for 1 year, this being his first year. So how many guys does he really know in NFL circles that would come work for him? That's the concern that I have. And being that he's so young, it's not like, when you're Marvin Lewis or whatever, you've been around all these coaches and so many, like you have a whole notebook full of names and phone numbers of guys that you could call and come work for you. Would Joe Brady be able to actually hire a staff? Like I have no question that he could dial up some nice, sexy plays and a quarterback, but could he get guys in? Like, cause he just have, we're just talking simple math here, his amount of time in the league where he actually had a position of authority where he would come to know these guys. So anyway, that's just my 2 cents.
That's definitely a good point. I will say, Joe Brady, he led the greatest FBS offense in history, and this Panthers team who faced like the hardest schedule in the league, second hardest schedule in the league, that offense wasn't the reason they sucked. And Teddy Bridgewater increased his yards per attempt by like a full yard, which is it's kind of insane to do as what is he, like an 8th-year quarterback at this point?
Something like that.
The guy has good success, whereas you go look at like Adam Gase and he was bad. So
that's true.
Again, I don't want to compare these guys to Adam Gase. So one thing that you brought up, like hiring a staff, which I think is an underrated part of like maybe hiring like Wink Martindale, who if he brings in Elliott, right? That's great.
That's the rumor.
But what happens when that's great, but what happens when oh my God, they get Zach Wilson, this offense is good, and now they poach Elliott. Now what? Now he's got to find a new. I don't want that. I want to find the Elliott. I want to find, if they get Joe Brady and he turns out to be the real guy, then there is no Dan Quinn, Kyle Shanahan system. situation where, they kept Dan Quinn because he was head coach, and then it wasn't really Dan Quinn, it was Kyle Shanahan, or even, I have a big inkling that, Matt Rule down the line isn't going to look so hot when Joe Brady is poached from him.
Here's the thing you got to consider is Joe Douglas. This is going to be his third year and his second head coach when he's with the Jets. Now, I know he negotiated a 6-year contract, so he was going to get at least 3 full drafts. But in his mind, he's going to want to hit a home run for a head coaching hire, which probably means he's probably going to be inclined to go more of the safer route, I would think, because, at this point, the Jets have had back-to-back losing seasons, and he doesn't want to lose his job. So the thing about Joe Brady is, and I'm with you, if they hire Joe Brady, I'm going to be excited as hell. I'm saying that right now, because if they do strike gold, that's going to be sexy. It's kind of like, in my opinion, I saw Darnold as a risky pick. I did not love Sam Darnold coming out of college, but I waited 3 years before I started criticizing him the way I do, because at this point I know I'm done with him. But I always saw the talent that was there, that it could potentially be molded. So I kind of view Brady in the same way. Like, it could end up being great. It could be McVay, it could be Shanahan, and it could be,
that's so my thing with Brady is, and it's a high risk. It's like one of those draft picks that's high floor or sorry, high ceiling, low floor. Like, he's a big risk to me. And you bring up a valid point. Like, listen, that's why Wink Martindale isn't my number one guy. And I've said it in past shows. I prefer the offensive guy because I don't want that offensive guy to be poached when the Jets hopefully do have success. So it's a very valid concern with the defensive guy. But Joe Brady it's not like I'm completely down on him. It's just not, he's just not my first pick just because of how kind of wet behind the ears he still is. Like, I want him to prove it to me a little bit more before he comes in here. That's so it's not like I'm completely down on him. But Jack, is there anything else you want to add before we throw you back to the queue?
Thanks.
Definitely appreciate the call too.
I don't expect them to hire him at all. This is just my dream, and I would be very excited because it's all about the quarterback. It's all about the passing offense, and he seems like that would be a fun team to watch, I think. So.
Yeah, Jack, we appreciate the call. I'm going to touch on that in a few seconds.
By the way, let's not forget about one other at the time very young head coach who was an offensive minded guy who was taking the league by storm. Josh McDaniels looked to be like a great hit at first, and then came crashing down.
Well, the thing is with
did 2 seasons.
Again, this is what I talk about, like the OC. Like, well, if he's a great OC, Banami might be a great OC. The Rams defensive coordinator might be a great DC. All these guys, Eberflus might be a great DC, but are they head coaches? There's a difference between being a coordinator and a coach, and that's what I'm not.
I'm with you. I'm more inclined to take the CEO guy who can be a good head coach. But I'll say this: if I got a chance to choose between Joe Brady, Saleh, Eberflus, one of these hot name defensive coordinators, I'm taking Joe Brady. If you give me the option, hot defensive coordinator name or Joe Brady.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Give me Joe Brady.
Yeah. Okay. Next call, Zach from California. Talking cap space. Zach, what's up?
Hey, what's up? Hey, I'm calling because I always have this question in the back of my mind and I never get it answered. So, say we trade back this year or next year. Let's just say we trade back at Pitt, Smith. I feel like in 5 years from say this year or next year, we're going to be in cap. Like, we're going to have to cut these guys, these number one guys, because we're going to be like the Rams now or the Saints. You know what I mean?
No. If you draft a quarterback this year, he's going to have a quarterback on a rookie contract. You're not going to be like the Rams or the Saints. The Rams or the Saints have quarterbacks on veteran contracts. The Rams are paying Goff $25+ million a year, maybe almost $30 million a year. You draft a rookie quarterback, you're not going to have that problem.
Right. But I'm saying if we say we keep Darnold,
we're not keeping Darnold.
Get Pitt.
Yeah, I really doubt that a new coach is going to want to bring in or to have a quarterback who is damaged at this point, who you have to sign to his 5th-year contract by the time they hit training camp. Like, it's not, I really, really doubt it's going to happen, especially with the guys coming out and the uncertainty of what Darnold's future holds, and the uncertainty of future quarterback drafts. And yeah, there will be a point where if the Jets are successful and if they hit on their 1st-round picks and they have to sign Q and they have to sign Becton, if they have to sign, Zach Wilson and Wyatt Davis and whoever else, that, yeah, they will be in a situation where they have to get rid of some of those guys. That's inevitable, because as your team progress, guys around the league are more interested in them. So you're gonna have to overpay them to keep them here. And guys don't want to cash in. So yeah, it'll happen eventually in terms of like having to sign guys, but we're in a situation right now where we have so much cap space and so many guys who we're not committed to long-term. Like, who do we have to commit to long-term? Quentin Williams, Becton, maybe Marcus May. But like, other than that, like, we have so many holes in this team. I'm not going to.
And eventually you're going to be able to get out of the CJ Mosley contract pretty soon too. That's going to free up
Henry Anderson, get rid of that.
That's
Like,
true.
yeah, I'm not gonna kind of put I don't know what the term is, like the cart before the horse or whatever the hell it is. But let's worry about having to pay guys and being in cap hell after we become a good team. Like, it's not something to worry about now,
Right. Yeah, it was just a constant question I had. I never really understood all of it. So
Yeah, okay.
I really do hope we get Campbell, though.
Okay,
Campbell's
yeah.
probably my number one. I've been watching him since
It
Toledo.
seems like it's not going to happen. I saw Scott Mason tweeted out earlier today that, like, I think it was Bruce Feldman who was on Rich Eisen's show today, and seems that the indications are that Campbell feels that he has, quote, unfinished business, end quote, at Iowa State still to be done.
Ooh.
So
The two most likely guys, if I had to hitch my wagon to either one, not my wagon, I guess, like the guys who I think are most likely is probably Wink Martindale, and I think Pat Fitzgerald, because of his prior relationships with Joe Douglas, which are apparently
how do they know each other?
I forget exactly, but I know they have.
Was it in
past
Baltimore?
dealings. I forget. I know they're intertwined somewhere where they have a lot of respect for each other.
That would be pretty awesome.
Yeah, and especially if you're having a Pat Fitzgerald who just coached against a Justin Fields, if he has respect for him, he says, "Hey, I can coach that freaking kid up, and he could be elite." The Johnsons might have to pony up and put on their big boy pants and have to pay a guy $8, $9, $10 million a year to come here. But if that's what they need to do to turn this franchise around, that's what they have to do. So,
hey, listen, the Raiders are known as being one of the more broke franchises. I mean, the Davises aren't exactly known as being like rich billionaires like some of these other owners, and they gave Gruden a 10-year, $10 million contract per year.
Mm-hmm.
So they found a way to pony up money to get their guy, and they're a broke franchise. So the Johnsons could do it if they really truly do care about this fan base.
Yeah. Anything else to add, Zach? We definitely appreciate the call.
Nope. Thank you.
Perfect.
Thanks, Zach.
I've never, like, I don't know if these people interact with me on Twitter. Obviously it's hard to put a face to a name or Twitter to like, oh, that's Zach, this one guy who tweets me all the time. But
oh yeah, it is hard to do that.
I appreciate everybody's calling in for sure.
Hey Joe, give me like, you can move on and talk about something else. I'm gonna go get another microphone stand. I'll be right back in a jiffy.
Why? Because you've been holding your mic like that?
Yeah, it fell off. I got a new desk
minutes?
and it's hard to put it on. Yeah.
Okay, we'll get to Matt in 2 seconds. Go through some of the comments. Some people, love Campbell. Yeah, Campbell's my number one. Shaw from what is it, Stanford or wherever the hell he is, I forget exactly. I haven't heard a lot about him. Let's see. There's a ton of freaking comments in here. I can say that we're going to have a shit ton of content on this stream in terms of breaking down these offenses. Instead of going to a 5-minute video on YouTube, there's going to be, and again, you might not want to dedicate hours to watching this. It depends how dedicated you are, but there will be hours of film breakdown of all of these guys. I'm going to bring on the caller though, just because I don't want to keep delaying. Kyle can come in at a later point. Matt Roger, I believe it says. Matt Schroja. Okay, what's up, dude? The demise of Sam Darnold, the biggest Sam Darnold supporter out there, the college basketball player. I remember. Man.
What's going on, dude? How you doing?
Doing all right. Looking forward to the offseason. I'm done with 2020. One of the shittiest years of in U.S. history and shittiest years of Jets history. So I'm ready to move on. What's up?
Yeah, man, I woke up today sad, broken like Sam Darnold.
All right. Is the reason being you're coming to the realization that Darnold's not it?
Oh, no, I came to the realization weeks ago. After the Chiefs game, I came to the realization. Also, the Broncos game, when he missed that receiver over the middle and hurt his shoulder.
Yeah.
What is really interesting about the Jets right now is really what's going on in ownership to me.
Okay.
And I don't know how you guys feel about that, or if you guys have really talked about that, but just from, a decision maker's perspective, they're really starting to take a step back for the first time I've ever really seen. I wonder what you're thinking about this. And I love Joe Douglas. That's the only reason why, I'm excited about next year. This hire, why isn't EB really at the highest of people's lists? He's proven that he can do anything with the quarterback, especially grow a young quarterback.
Yeah. So
I don't know if you saw that Tariq Hill quote that he had when he saw Mahomes his first year. He said that he thought Mahomes was awful.
I saw that,
Mahomes was able to back up a quarterback. He's able to read defenses, things like that. What we saw with Sam Darnold, we can't repeat, is if you have a young quarterback come in, you can't make the assumption that they can just read a defense.
No,
that might be the
NFL
most difficult thing for a prospect to do.
That is the hardest thing in the NFL to do. I would say reading a defense and reading, anticipating windows, things like that, the traps and all the different defenses they have in the NFL. It's impossible to say. They'll be able to read a defense. Obviously, you want to see it at the college level and them doing it efficiently. It is definitely a concern when they do not do that because it just gets much more difficult. But we spoke about the ownership thing earlier in the show, and just to hit on again quickly, like you said, it's great because look at what ownership has done to this team. Minus a couple of years of AFC Championship game, like they've meddled in it. The signing of Tebow. Them getting a call from Peyton Manning and hiring Gase, like all of this stuff that happened. Clearly, they overstepped their bounds. So the fact that they're now kind of realizing their mistakes, hopefully, and saying, okay, we hired this Joe Douglas guy. We basically begged to get him in here. We're going to allow him to run the show and make the football decisions is one of the most impactful things you could have heard to start this search. Like that's exactly what you want to hear. So I'm greatly encouraged by that, to be completely honest. And then with EB, Bieniemy is, again, I'm always concerned about hiring coordinators under the head coach's specialty, because how much is he really involved? And I know people say, oh, well, this game he called it and this game he didn't, but it's different when you have to be the guy,
right? But nobody
the supplement
knows.
To the guy. So you don't know exactly what he is. And that's the concern about him. I know he's had some character issues in the past. I've heard of like little things brought up here and there, which I'm not really concerned
Ben Albright
about,
has brought up that point many times. I think it was something like some kind of domestic violence issue.
Yeah. So
from
again,
a long time ago.
DUI. It was a DUI too. He had back-to-back DUIs, which I mean,
it happens.
I'm not going to judge a guy who got a DUI when he's 30. Yeah.
It's not the biggest deal in the world. Obviously, it's pretty damn stupid, but it's just the unknown of how much does he really contribute to that offense? Because he might call the plays, but who's game planning, who's scouting, who's bringing in the personnel, who's talking in the meetings, like those things we don't know. Are the issues with bringing in a coordinator under the head coach's specialty. So there's a lot of question marks with Bieniemy. It's not why he's one of my top guys. Would I be upset if he's brought in? No, because he is highly touted, but there's a reason that he's dropped off a little bit. I think people are kind of looking into that right now.
So as a football mind, both of you guys, a CEO coach means what? Because from my perspective, I don't understand the nuances of that. What does that specifically mean? Does that mean that you're overseeing everything?
So this
Kyle, go ahead. I hit on this before.
Or does that mean you're overseeing the whole coaching staff?
This is the way that I kind of think about it. When you're like a CEO type of coach, Bill Belichick, depending on what his staff is on any given year and what his personnel is on any given year, he's going to change what he can do, and he can excel in many different areas. So when I was listening to the Make Defense Great Again podcast, and they had Dean Pease on. Dean Pease, longtime defensive coordinator in the NFL, had a really good tenure with the Ravens. I think the Ravens won a Super Bowl in 2012 when he was the defensive coordinator. I'm almost positive about that. He was the defensive coordinator for the Titans last year. So really well-respected guy. Earlier on in his career, he worked for Belichick in New England. One of the interesting things that Pease said was that Belichick barely, when Pease was there, because Pease was a veteran defensive coordinator who had a lot of time in the NFL, and they also had Crennel. They had a lot of other guys who did a lot of work on the defensive side of the ball, which is Belichick's specialty. So Belichick trusted them that they could do that job. So Belichick, during that time, he barely spent any time with the defense. And Dean Pease said that 90% of his time Belichick spent with Tom Brady, teaching Tom Brady, this is what this defense is going to do to you on this given week. And they're meeting one-on-one. Yeah. But look at Belichick last year after Brian Flores goes and he loses some defensive guys. Belichick starts calling plays on defense again. He can do it all, right? Yeah. So this is what makes Belichick so great is depending on what his personnel and his coaching staff is on any given year, he's a chameleon. He can change and excel in many different areas. Adam Gase shits the bed when he doesn't have offensive talent that's going to do exactly what it is that he wants it to do. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it totally does. I mean, the parallel to Gase is obviously a complete loser.
Yeah, and just
I
to
totally
quickly
hear what you're saying. That CEO thing definitely does, because I didn't understand that.
Quickly touch on it too. Like, I want a guy who's not going to specialize in. There's a difference between good coordinators and good OC, good DC, because your primary focus on just that. Whereas a head coach, you have to focus on meetings and addressing the team and talking to everybody and focusing on offense and defense, or specializing in position, looking at the quarterback, looking at the defense, speaking to grown men, managing grown men is a lot different than, in college, talking to kids who are there on scholarship, whatever, blah, 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 blah. So that's why the Matt Campbells who have went to Iowa State and turned that program around proves a lot of him as a guy, as a leader, as a right, as a CEO. The guys in Pat Fitzgerald who have turned around Northwestern completely show a lot about the CEO guy they are. The John Harbaughs of the league are the CEO guy, the overseers of the offense and the defense, the Bill Belichick's of the league. Like there are guys who specialize, and that's great. Like, you want to obviously have the acumen to be able to coach a defense or an offense, but that there's so much more to being a head coach than just specializing in offense or defense. And that's why I lean towards the CEO types that we talk about.
Gotcha. All right.
Perfect.
Very cool. And last question here: where do you guys see Sam ending up, and for what's the compensation? I bet that'd be a second round pick yesterday. It's probably going to be a late third or a third from San Fran. What do you guys think?
Kyle, so for me personally, just on everything I hear, and this is guys who are more connected to guys, in the league, because I'm not getting texts from GMs and things like that. Right. Everybody seems to think it's going to be a second and a late pick. So I'm fine with a second. If you're stacking, 2 firsts, 2 seconds, 2 thirds, and 2 fourths from Leonard Williams, like that's a ton of space. But I'm going to lean towards, like, I think if I had a bet today, like a second and a fifth, like what they got for Josh Rosen, or what the Cardinals or whatever got for Josh Rosen. But Matt, we definitely appreciate the call. Going to jump into some other callers. Definitely appreciate you consistently calling in, man.
Thanks, all right, guys. Have a good one.
All right, cool. We have a couple more callers on the line. Again, appreciate everybody for calling in. Alex talking about the future head coach. Alex, what is up?
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yep, yeah. Gotcha.
Awesome. Hey, thanks for having me on, guys.
Yep.
Really appreciate it. Watch you guys for a while.
Oh, cool.
So I want to talk about the head coaching situation, like what's going to happen. Honestly, in my opinion, I would stay away from guys like Joe Brady, because I understand everyone's like real happy and like excited about him because, oh, look, Teddy Bridgewater is really good. He made Robbie Anderson look decent. But like Teddy Bridgewater was really good before his injury, don't you think? Like, and
Kyle
Robbie
thought
Anderson,
he was like a league MVP.
Moore.
Shut up. I always higher on Teddy Bridgewater than most people were. And I stick by this to this day. I actually texted this, or I actually tweeted this out to someone yesterday in a reply. Teddy Bridgewater should have been the starter in 2018. I know the Jets traded and got a third rounder for him and maybe even something else. He should have started. Sam should have sat, and I think it would have done Sam a lot of good to sit for his first year.
So, Alex, I know you're talking about Joe Brady, and we touched on Joe Brady a little bit before. He's a high risk, high reward type guy, so he's not my preference. So I do want to be a little bit safer, but I wanted those CEO types that we just spoke about to the last caller. But who was the guy that you want? Like who was your preference to get as a coach?
If I had to pick, I'd pick Brian Daboll, the offensive coordinator of the Bills, because it's twofold. Like, one, he made Josh Allen go from awful last year to good this year, and like a lot
borderline
of that is on Josh
MVP.
Allen, can't take away his. Yeah, honestly, and like
I
you're
cannot
also
think of
hurting
another example of a player that's taken the kind of jump that Josh Allen has.
Dude, and like when you legitimately say like he's MVP level, like it's him, Rodgers, Mahomes right now probably is the top three. You can argue if Wilson's in there.
Russ was earlier in the year, but then he's tapered off.
So I would say Campbell and Fitz are my number 1 and 2. I think Dable is my 3. I really like him in Wink, but I do prefer the offensive guy. And like you said, especially with the guy in Fields, if you do bring him in, who had similar problems to Josh Allen in college and even in his first and second year in the NFL, are pretty similar to Josh Allen. So to bring in a guy who fixed Josh Allen and make him what he is today, and Fields, who is undoubtedly a higher higher rated prospect than Josh Allen is, to bring in Dable, I think would be absolutely fantastic. So that's like probably my number 1 coordinator type guy who I want to come in. Again, I want the Fitzgeralds and the Campbells more, but number 3 on my list is not a bad spot to be. Like there's a decent amount of good options on the table right now. So I definitely agree with you about
and
Dable.
the thing with Dable that you don't have to worry about with Brady is that Dable has been in the league for a long time. So you have to imagine that he has a lot more connections. And let's not forget that before Dable went to Buffalo, he was in New England learning under Belichick. Right. So he learned from, he's been under 2 good head coaches in Belichick and McDermott. So this guy, he's gotten to observe in different circumstances, really good head coaches doing some things. So Dable to me would be a pretty sexy hire in my opinion.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's what I prefer the most, but you give me Dable over any of these defensive names.
Offensive names too. I'm taking him as my number 1 offensive guy too. I'm taking him over Bieniemy. I'm taking him over Brady. I just think he's
I think he's a lot less riskier than Brady. Brady's sexy. Brady's very sexy, but it's definitely less riskier for sure.
Yeah. Alex, anything else you want to add? Appreciate the call for sure.
Like quick question. Do you guys really like Justin Fields that much? Like, for what I've seen, from I've listened to Colin Cowherd and other people talk about it, and they bring up this point where
listen, I'm going to tell you, Alex, I'm going to interrupt you right here, especially if you're a new caller, a new listener to the show, and you bring up names like Colin Cowherd. The guy couldn't tell you what a cover 2 defense is and what guys' responsibilities are. So if you're listening to him for his football opinion because he hears it from other people and it's just recycled shit, do not listen to those people. There's so many better people on Twitter. There's so many better Jets fans that you could follow. Cowherd knows absolutely nothing, and his job is to stir people up and to get reactions so he gets ratings. Do not listen to idiots like that. Michael Kay, all those guys, they don't know shit about football. They literally know nothing. So that's that. I'm going to interrupt you before you even finish. I don't care what he said. Fields is a high rated prospect for a reason. I think he has a pretty high ceiling, a little bit lower of a floor than Wilson, in my opinion, because he can have that one read tendency, the tendency to drop his eyes, to panic a little bit. So if he, and especially with the talent around him in Ohio State, like beating up on teams like Rutgers, great. So can he do in the NFL? It's a question, but if you have the right coach, and like you're saying, if you bring in a Dabble and that's your guy, or Dable, then that is fantastic for Fields, because like I said, he shares similar issues too with Josh Allen. So he is a very highly rated prospect for a reason. And please stop listening to Colin Cowherd.
I got you. Yeah. That's a good point. I'm really excited to hear you break down his tape or whatever you're gonna do later on.
I'm telling you right now, there's gonna be too much. There's gonna be at least 4 hours of me breaking down arm slots and hips and like the hell is it, like different throwing motions. There's gonna be so much shit that we get into. It's gonna be almost annoying. So I appreciate the call, Alex, and hopefully we hear from you again soon.
Okay.
Cool. Okay, next caller, and then I think okay, let's see. Jets receiving core. I think this person wants to talk about. I didn't get a name. I think it's Eric. Eric, if that is your name, what's up?
Yeah. Can you guys hear me? It is Eric.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, so I'm just calling about the current state of the receiving core, I guess, especially if you're going to bring in a younger quarterback, similar to what the Bills did with Josh Allen, loading up the offense. I think we're probably missing one guy. I know you're really high on Mims and can view him as a one in the future.
Yeah.
But this year's free agency, there's a lot of receivers that have been productive this year, and obviously teams are struggling with cap space. So I was just wondering on what you would do if you had the choice.
Go ahead, Kyle.
in terms of what I'm doing in free agency at receiver? Is that the
either
question?
addressing it in free agency or the draft?
Well, I'm definitely looking to draft at least one receiver, and I'm definitely looking to sign at least one receiver too.
Yeah.
I don't know how much you were listening to us, but earlier I said this, and I'll say it again because I really strongly believe in it. My opinion, if I'm Joe Douglas, there's no way in hell that I'm not taking a quarterback at 2. Now, who is that at that point? I don't know yet. I need to watch a lot more of them before I spout off opinions. This is one thing that kind of bothers me is that some people already have very strong opinions on who their guy is. Oh, I'm a Wilson guy. Oh, I'm a Fields guy. How do you know? Have you watched all their games yet? I mean, like, I don't know how you could,
Bro,
could
I watched that one game
side or the
against
other.
Clemson that one time.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know how, I don't know who that guy is going to be yet for me. And this is also why I'm going to watch Lance to give him his fair shake. But the thing that I said earlier is, you don't want to make the same mistake with Darnold. The Jets did a terrible job. And listen, you had to give up so many assets to move up to get him. So that's part of the problem. But then you didn't do enough to sign other free agents. And some of the guys you did draft didn't pan out. But for me, if I'm Joe Douglas, I'm taking a quarterback at 2. Mm-hmm. And what I'm doing in free agency is I'm looking to sign a big time offensive lineman. I'm going after one of these top 2 guards, sure for Tooney, preferably Tooney because of injury history, and he's a little younger. And probably even a little bit better too, in my opinion. And I'm definitely looking to sign a receiver. Now there's some pretty good names out there. This is as far as receivers can go, it's the best that I can remember.
What are your top 3?
Definitely Allen Robinson's one. Definitely. Okay. The only issue I have with him is, and I know he can do many things, but to me, his biggest skill set is still going up to get the ball vertically, which happens to be Mims's best skill set. And I want receivers that can do different things. So that's my one issue with that. I kind of like Godwin. Is Godwin going to shake free? Are they going to franchise him? Who the hell knows? I like Galladay too. He's also a big body type receiver. So he's also kind of similar to Mims in that regard. But I'm looking to sign at least one of these guys too.
Yeah.
All right. And then listen, you're going to have an early 2nd round pick and a late 1st round pick. And maybe you take that late 1st round pick and you trade back. And then that makes you have 2 early 2s. And then you got a 3. I mean, you can draft 1 or 2 receivers pretty early in this draft too. My point is this. I'm looking to totally load up on offense, especially the draft. You don't want to just draft based on need. That's always a recipe for disaster. Mm-hmm. But in free agency is always more of a needs-based approach. You sign free agents for holes that you need to fill. So for me, I'm about developing my young quarterback. So if I spend all of my free agent money on offense and don't give a shit about defense, I'm fine with that because it's not really about winning this year. It's about helping the young quarterback developing, in my opinion.
Yeah. For me, Robinson's probably the one. Godwin, Galladay, those guys. I'm definitely looking to sign one of those. Again, anything that's going to help the new quarterback coming in, I want to heavily spend, even overspend on those positions. I really don't care at this point because they need to be set up for success, like Sam Darnold was not, especially in his first 2 years. So one of those guys, like you said, one of the guards. But just talking receivers, one of those top 5, top 4, whatever it is. It's like Galladay, Godwin, Robinson. I'm not a big fan of Juju, to be completely honest, especially like the slot stuff, especially with his with having Jamison Crowder. It's a little bit redundant, even though he's a little bit different of a player than Jamison Crowder. But it also depends on the coach. If they're going to run a lot of spread stuff, then you have 2 slots. That's completely fine. So that depends a lot. But bringing in one of the bigger free agents, and then in the top 3 rounds, you draft a wide receiver. Obviously, if it falls like perfectly, you get Robinson in the second round pick at 34. You get Olave. For Justin Fields, if you draft him like that, would be perfect. And Wyatt Davis is the second 1st round pick. Like we could imagine all that stuff.
Olave, I'm telling you, Olave pops on the film, bro. The first time I ever watched Justin Fields, I was like, who the hell is this guy who keeps catching balls?
Yeah. So those are some of the guys I like, but I think they're going to double up at the receiver position. I don't think you want to screw around with it, especially if you have injuries, whatever it may be. They probably let Perriman walk, and then you're looking at hopefully a wide receiver core next year of a top 3 round pick at wide receiver, and Allen Robinson, Galladay, Godwin, Crowder. And that's pretty much your core with Mims, So that's what I'm thinking they'll do, but Crowder, I could be wrong. So anything else from you, Eric?
Yeah, I know you love Mims, so I was just wondering if you saw him destroy Denzel Ward on the double move and then Sam completely miss him.
Yeah,
and how
dude.
that made you feel.
Dude, like I said, plenty of these guys are getting open versus these teams, and that's why the stat humpers out there will say, "Oh, well, Mims had 0 catches or 1 catch this game or 2 catches this game or whatever it is," and they say, "Oh, he had such a bad game because he didn't get the stat." But if the quarter, especially receiver, it's such a reliant position on what's around you. So if the quarterback doesn't see, if the offense isn't, elevating your game and you're not getting targeted, then yeah, you can't have good stats as a receiver. That's why Perryman, I argued a lot about. Like, if people said, "Oh, he dropped all these balls last couple of weeks," one couple of them were great plays by Denzel Ward. Yeah, he might have geared down, whatever it may be, for one of the balls. But Perryman in with the Bucks, a lot of people didn't watch those first 10 games of what he was actually doing. And with a lot of those plays in those games, he was the fourth read because you had guys like Godwin, Evans. I've spoken about this before. And there was plays where he burned Darius Slay and he could have had an 85-yard touchdown on a 9 route. So is it his fault that the quarterback did not target him? Like, is that his fault? So I'm much more about process versus results. I'm gonna say 95% of fans are results stats, where the process to me is so much more important. So a lot of guys watch broadcasts and Google stats, and they don't really know how effective guys are because stats are so fluky. They really are. So, yeah, I don't know what you asked, but that's my opinion. I go in a little weird ways, but anything else before?
By the way,
sorry.
You mentioned stats earlier, and you said that they pretty much, they could be so misleading and things like this. And then you said, except for Nania, which I agree. And I asked
Nania watches film.
That's I know he does. And I asked him a stats question yesterday because I knew he'd be the guy. And I was like, listen, I watched 3 years of Darnold. Darnold is awful. And one of the areas that he's so bad in is in the red zone. So I said, what are Darnold's career turnovers in the red zone? So Nania, he's like, I'll look it up. And sure enough, he got back to me today and he said, Darnold has 28 touchdowns to 6 touchdown to interception ratio in the red zone, which is 4.7 touchdowns for every 1 turnover. And he said, that's way below the NFL average since 2018, which is 10.3 to 1. So the average is 10.3 to 1. Darnold, that is 4.7. So Darnold is turning it over in the red zone for his entire career. And we're talking even pre-Gase, way above league average. So that's a good stat right there, in my opinion, because you can't be turning the ball over in the red zone. When you turn the ball over in the red zone, you're not even getting yourself a field goal.
Dude, we have so much film, and I have so much film on the computer. If you want me to just make I'll send 100 plays to Nania, and he has a lot more to do other than this, but we could put together a highlight film of just completely missed plays from Darnold. Like, if people really need to see that, like, it's so obvious on film. That's why I try to break it down. But Eric, anything else before we jump into some other topics? Definitely appreciate the call. I don't know if this is your first time calling, but if so, I definitely appreciate it.
It is.
Cool.
Thank you. I appreciate you taking it.
Thanks,
hopefully
Eric.
you're calling in too, man.
Thank you.
I still see Adam Gase in the chat. I believe he said before that there's a Knicks game on at 7:30, so he was going to drop off at 7:30. But he's still in here, so I appreciate you, Adam Gase. We have a ton of questions in here, which if you ask him whatever super chat, I can definitely see him. But
surprised Gase is still a Knicks fan after he just got fired by a New York team.
Yeah. Dark said that he thinks Allen Robinson's not a number 1. I think you're crazy. Somebody asked
what's his argument?
Sweeney.
What's his argument for that?
I don't know.
Sweeney's not leaving college.
Sweeney's not leaving college. And then somebody asked us.
Here's the difference between Fitzgerald and Campbell and some of these other big. Fitzgerald and Campbell are at small time college programs. Sweeney's at a big time college program.
Yeah.
The only good upside that I have seen from it, like, let's say if you're at a big time college program like Nick Saban or Dabo Sweeney, you're making NFL money anyway.
Yeah.
And you're winning year in, year out. It's going to be much more easy to consistently win. The only upside I can see is you don't have to spend time recruiting. That's the only upside I could see.
I don't. He hasn't been mentioned leaving, so I don't think he will. I think there's been some rumors with Pat Fitzgerald. I think it's Pat Fitzgerald. There's some talk about there being a new athletic director or something like that. So if you can, like, if you really kind of throw all the money at him, like, you have to really entice him to leave, but he might. But we'll see. Like, I would predict by at least 2 weeks they'll have their answer, and then you just give me a little bit of time. And I know there was 300 people in here. There's still 240. I appreciate all the 240 of you. If half of you actually watch the shows, I appreciate that, but the breakdowns will be extensive on these guys. Some people asked us, let's see, to rank the head coaching spots. And they mentioned specifically, well, we know them: the Texans, Falcons, Jags, Lions,
I
and
would have ranked
Chargers.
the Jags a lot higher before we saw what Shad Khan said today.
So what's your order? What if you had to pick? If you were a brand new head coach and you were going to the NFL?
Texans won.
So Texans, there's problems with all of them. The Texans in terms of them not having any cap space, but you have the quarterback. I would probably,
and he's young. He's so young.
I would probably
it's not like
say,
you're talking about Aaron Rodgers, who Aaron Rodgers is on the late stages of his career.
I might say Chargers, Texans at 1-2. I would probably say the Jags at 3, I guess, but the Jets might be 3, honestly, because if you're having Khan come out and say that he's taking control of the roster and like he's the final say of the roster, like he was like pretty firm in it.
I'm not. Listen, Khan spent most of his life in Pakistan. Like, I know he's been owner of a football team for a while, but like, I'll be honest, Pakistan is not a big thing. Football is not a big thing in Pakistan.
Yeah.
Many Pakistani friends.
Shadow asked if there's a special teams coordinator that we have looked into as a head coach. None that I've heard of. I haven't heard any guys. People talk about Perryman. Perryman is bad in traffic. Perryman's actually pretty good in contested catches. Again, the one play, like people are like, oh, he dropped it. Denzel Ward made a ridiculous play on that ball. Like that was Denzel Ward having a better defensive play than Perryman having a bad offensive play. It was an elite defensive play to get his hand in there. Like he was trying to pull the ball back and everything, and he just got his hand in there. It is what it is. Let's see if there's anything. Okay, so we have another caller that just says Trey Lance. So let's talk to Giuseppe. I think it is. I think
Giuseppe.
Giuseppe. What's up? Can you hear us?
It's Pete. It's Pete.
It's
What's
Pete.
up, guys?
Okay. I don't know how it got Giuseppe out of Pete. I know.
What's up, guys?
Pete Friend. Okay, you're the guy who commented on one of my YouTube videos and said to watch the Trey Lance thing with Mark Schofield.
Yeah.
I think I watched that. There's something that I definitely disagree with with what they were saying in terms of like some of the throws he was making that were so good and things like that. There's just a lot more that I saw with Justin Fields and Zach Wilson in terms of what they put on film. Like if that was their best examples of great film from Trey Lance, then fine. I will evaluate him myself. I have not yet. But in terms of him being an option versus the Justin Fields and the Zach Wilsons of the world right now, no. Because of, again, he's a guy who definitely likes to run, and just in terms of his starts and his lack of experience at obviously a lower tier school definitely scares me, because you can be that 1-year wonder type guy and then completely fizzle out like plenty of have. So I think he's a high risk guy to me, where Fields and Wilson are a little bit more proven, and have a little bit more experience. So Trey Lance is not my number one option, but I know you do like him a lot. I know you watched most of the videos at least. So I will have a breakdown of him for sure. I'm not just going to kind of brush him to the side. So
yeah, for sure. I asked you that question earlier and you didn't make it sound like it was a certainty.
A certainty? I'll do it for Pete. I won't do it for you.
Oh, well, screw you then.
Pete, any other thought? What are your, I know you said you watched some videos. So what is that like a guy you want to take at 2, or are you trading down? Like, what do you,
I feel about him like the same way Kyle feels about Joe Brady almost. It excites me because I think his upside is really high compared to like Zach Wilson.
Okay. So if it's, do you prefer him even over Fields?
I actually think I still think his floor is higher than Fields, just based on the offense he was in. More pro style out of North Dakota State.
Yeah, again, that's something I'll have to watch.
And also,
continue.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And no, it's all right. I just wanted to ask: do you think the fact that Joe Douglas was on the Eagles when they picked Carson Wentz from the same school, you think that has any effect on?
No, I don't. Maybe he has some connections there that he can speak to, but a lot of the scouts have connections. Like, again, we need to crush, like, and it's not directed at you, Pete, and you know that. But like the same quarterbacks from the same schools, like we'll hear the arguments of, oh, Fields is Haskins. Why? Because they're both African American. They went to frickin' to Ohio State, or oh, Sam Darnold is Mark Sanchez or Carson Palmer.
Dude.
Or hey, no, hold on, Kyle.
I hate
Quarterbacks,
those.
there's not a
I hate
lot of
those too.
successful quarterbacks who come from Ohio State. Guess what? Drew Brees came from Purdue. What other successful quarterbacks came from Purdue? Mahomes. You can't take Mahomes. There's not a lot of guys who are successful from Texas Tech. Like, and the examples go on and on and on. Tom Brady. Like, there's so name a school who has produced 2 elite quarterbacks. Mississippi State. Like, all of these schools, you can't just say, oh, this school doesn't produce quarterbacks. It's the dumbest possible thing you could say. And Pete, again, that is not directed at this at all. You're talking about connections from Douglas to that school, which, yeah, he might have some inside knowledge of him. And I agree that his ceiling is really high. He's kind of like, maybe a good comparison is like, he's like the Joe Brady of quarterbacks, where like he's a high ceiling guy, but a low floor type of guy because he's not proven enough to me, where guys like Fields and Wilson are a little bit more proven. So I don't think he's a terrible option. I just don't think he's an option at 2 yet. But again, I will preface that by saying that I have not watched him extensively on my own film breakdowns. A 5, 10, 15, 20-minute video does not do it for me, because there's a lot more that people do not show. People tend to put better plays into film without evaluating the bad plays. It happens a lot because that gains more popularity, in my opinion. But I'll have at least, maybe it won't be 150 4 to 6 hour review like I'll have on Justin Fields, maybe an hour or two one, depending on what I see. But is there anything else? Or I don't know if I even answered your question.
I want to chime in on the whole Ohio State quarterback thing for a moment, if I may. Dude,
yeah.
Justin Fields and Dwayne Haskins are not even in the same stratosphere as an athlete. Dude, just look at a picture of Justin Fields' legs versus Dwayne Haskins' legs. Haskins has got some of the skinniest legs I've ever seen. The dude can't move. Justin Fields can move. Justin Fields has a significantly better arm than Dwayne Haskins has. And if you want to go stats for a moment, Mike Renner, a PFF guy, he put out the amount of air yards that Justin Fields had in his career versus that of Haskins. Mm-hmm. It's night and day in that regard too. So they're not even the same athlete. The stats don't bear it out. Listen, it's not a good comparison. Like I mean, there's a little something to that point, but you're talking one is a way better athlete.
Bro,
I will say that
they wore the same jersey though. They wore the same jersey though.
Ohio State
colors.
Ohio State does make things easy for Fields. I can say that. Like early on, when I was watching some of his 2019 tape, I was like, "Yeah, this guy. I don't ever see him having to be challenged." Right. So that is one. It's something that's concerning and something that we should take into account. But he's not. They're not even the same athlete at all.
Mm-hmm. Anything else, Pete? I definitely appreciate you calling in. I know you've been a supporter of the channel for quite a bit, so I definitely appreciate you.
No, that's it. You guys answered my questions. Thanks.
Yep, I'll have that Trey Lance video out for you in a couple of months, probably.
All right, sounds good.
All right. Yeah, some people talking about. I see some people in the chat talking about Kyle Trask. Why did you not watch his most recent game? He was dreadful. Absolutely. Oh, his receivers weren't there. Okay. Doesn't mean you should throw right to defender. Like, he was bad. Not a fan of that. Lance only has 335 career pass attempts from Seamus, whatever the hell it is. I don't know how to pronounce that. I agree. That's a big reason I'm not into that draft pick. Okay, we have another caller. Probably cut off calls after this one, I think, just because we have to get into some other topics. But Matt, and talking about Wilson or Fields. What's up, Matt?
What's up? How's it going, guys?
Hey, Matt.
I just wanted to state that Wilson and Fields actually played the same amount of ranked schools this year.
Okay.
And I'm just really big on Wilson, so I just wanted to see what you guys had to say about that.
Well, one thing that comes off the top of my head is that Fields didn't play that many games because of the whole reduced COVID schedule.
No,
you're right. That's true.
Yeah, so a lot of people in the chat, and I've seen it before, that people are talking about Wilson and the town he played against and all this stuff in the conference and blah 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 blah. A lot of what I'm seeing from him is translatable to the NFL. The window throws he's making, the leverage that he's reading, the fact of him looking off safeties, things like that. So and again, there's a lot more I'm gonna get into that's super, super basic. I think that it's not like an overly big concern. Like he's just playing an offense where everybody's wide open all the time, which to a certain extent, yeah, there's guys open. There are plays, you'll see highlights of him, which you should just completely trash of him standing in the pocket for 10 seconds looking for a receiver to come open. He hits a receiver. Like, great. That's not gonna happen in the NFL. So there's certain plays you have to throw out, but at the same time with that, there's plenty that I saw. And again, over the 100 plays I recorded and over probably 1,000 I've watched already of him, that were plenty translatable to the NFL level. So I'm really high on Wilson too. And if I had to choose one right now, Wilson or Fields, it is Wilson for me. I like his brand a little bit better.
Yeah,
I think he's a little bit more consistent from a snap to snap basis where Fields makes some mind numbing mistakes that I do not like. Again, higher ceiling, lower floor, in my opinion, for a guy like Fields, but again, a lot comes to that Bama game and who the coach is, things like that. But
I'm so excited for that game.
Yeah. So yeah, Matt, I agree with you. It's not just, oh, he played in a bad conference, he played bad teams, he's terrible. Like, okay, but if he's fitting a ball into a 3-yard window, reading leverage, reading defenses, things like that, like that's translatable. Like not every throw in the NFL is into an inch window. Like there are plenty of things that are translatable. Somebody asked in the chat about the comparison to Aaron Rodgers that somebody made. Aaron Rodgers is obviously one of the most talented quarterbacks of all time. I think when Jeremiah was comparing him to Rodgers, it's the ability to throw off platform. It's the ability to throw a ball 50 yards with a flick of the wrist. So I see that aspect of it. But Rodgers is also a guy who historically throws like 4 picks a year because he's so damn good at just not putting the ball in dangerous situations.
He's a very unique player.
But he's like a gunslinger, but a smart one at the same time. Where Wilson, he has the issue of, one, he's a little bit too small, in my opinion. He needs to put on some muscle just for his ability to stay healthy. He also tends to just chuck the ball up into situations where he shouldn't, if there's nothing else open. So he needs to learn to check the ball out, take a sack, throw the ball out of bounds, whatever it may be. So there are issues he has, but in terms of like his competition, it's not something I'm overly concerned about. Yeah, would I like to see him play against Alabama and perform against them? Yes, but that's not the situation he's in. You just got to kind of know how to watch it. But which I'll have breakdowns of all that shit anyway. So Matt, is there anything else you want to add?
I want to say something before Matt.
Yeah, actually, just one more thing.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just don't. I see a lot of people saying it's going to be the Watson Trubisky situation all over again if we picked Wilson, but that's not true at all.
Yeah, but listen, like this is all you say based on what, and then people are going to say because they have nothing to base that on. That's garbage.
I'm sorry. Like Trubisky showed some things in college that were nice, but like Wilson's big time plays are like you did not see that stuff from Trubisky like pretty much ever. Like Trubisky was a pretty athletic guy and stuff, and he tested well at the combine. I think he even ran a faster 40 than Deshaun at the combine. So that was part of the reason he was hyped up a little bit, but his tape didn't look anything like Wilson's. I'm sorry. And one of the things I wanted to say about Rodgers too,
I really didn't see anything.
Rodgers is so unique, and there's a reason why Rodgers slipped to 24 in the draft. And one thing I want to say about Rodgers too, you know, him sitting the bench, I think did him so much good, which goes back to my Teddy Bridgewater point. Well, if you notice, Ted Wynn did a fascinating video a couple of years ago. Ted Wynn is FB_film analysis on Twitter. Many of you guys who probably know who he is, got a big following. He interviewed head coach Dub Maddox, who does a lot of work with quarterbacks and stuff. And they showed like tape of like early Rodgers, and I think maybe even college Rodgers. He was able to, Rodgers has one of the quickest deliveries in the NFL. And he was able to make his delivery so much quicker as his career progressed. It's insane. I don't really see much quarterbacks ever being able to do that. And that's one of the reasons why he's so great. So Rodgers is a very unique player. I haven't watched Wilson enough to even say if I could even see any of that in his game yet.
It's the quick release. It's the arm angles. It's the fluid movement in the pocket. Like I get some of the comparisons with that.
It's the weird throws.
Yeah, his ability to shuffle not be able to set his feet, not get pointed, not get square, and fire balls from all different arm angles, all different. A lot of people think it's just arm angles. No, it's about, a lot of throws is your feet and the force you generate from the ground through your hips and rotate into that whipping motion. Like, he has the ability to not necessarily need that to deliver ball accurately. So a lot of things that are interesting with him in terms of that. But again, he has some gunslinger mentality type stuff, but there's a lot we'll get into with the offseason with that. But Matt, we appreciate the call, and hopefully you call in again soon.
Yep, sounds good. And lastly, before I go, I just wanted to say that if we do Jeff Fields, I'll still be ecstatic. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure.
I'm with you.
Either one of them, I'm good with. I get either one. I'm not going to be angry at either one.
Yeah, exactly. All right, be good.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Yeah, it's it all depends. Like, listen, if they bring in Dabble, Dable, whatever the hell it is, I'm ecstatic with Justin Fields. It depends. Like, if they have a guy who's more of like a play action type guy, more kind of leveled concepts, like more complex things, instead of half field reads RPOs, like, then I'll be a little bit more concerned, depending on his flexibility to bend his offense around Fields. It all depends on who the coordinator is. It's going to be huge. One more. We're going to take one more. This is probably Sharman. It says Sherman Hood, so I think it's Sharman. Sharman, what's up?
What's up, Joe? How you doing?
How you doing, man?
What's
Good
going
to hear
on?
from you.
How you doing, Sharman?
Yeah, man. I literally quit Joe. I used to follow Joe, and everything he wrote and posted on Twitter for a long time. It's been a while, man. A little bit about Fields, man. I know everybody's high on him right now. One of my challenges is that I know the Ohio State scheme kind of makes quarterbacks look a little bit better than they normally do. What is some of the things that for you that sticks out about Fields that really sells him?
Do you want to go through my list? Let's see.
You don't have to go through your whole list.
No, dude. Listen,
no, Joe, you should, Joe, because this is what separates you from a lot of other Jet shows that are talking about this crap.
So some of the stuff, and this is not. And listen, this is
a lot of these Jet shows right now. They're going to be talking about Justin Fields. Oh, he's great. Did you see him on the Netflix show where he's talking about MILFs and stuff?
Did you see that run? Yes. So this is some of the stuff that I have. And these are, again, I'm still not necessarily early into my evaluation, but I got to clean a lot of stuff up. But some of the rough drafts of the strengths I have for him, obviously athleticism, good arm, great runner, throwing mechanics. His weight transfer is really good between his back and his front foot. He gets his hallway pointed, pocket feel awareness, even though he does take some sacks. In general, it's decent. He needs to learn when to chuck the ball away. Zip on ball, can make something out of nothing, throw on the run. His transitional footwork is good. Willing to take a hit while throwing, drives his front foot, acceleration, lateral athleticism, strong runner, power, contact balance, off platform throws. He drives his hips really hard, really creating a lot of whip on the ball. Strong front leg that's also has good bend to it. You don't really see him extend it. And when you extend the front leg, you don't allow your back hip to come through, and you don't allow your back hip to come through. Your weight transfer is not good, and it affects your arm angle. Good in terms of keeping his front arm tight. There's more on here. Let's say a powerful lower body hips. Versus Clemson, you obviously saw, him in a big spot, zip, going through reads, the deep ball accuracy, the decision making, tight window throws, smooth when moving through pocket, flashing of reading defenses, going through reads. Like there's more. That's some of the notes that I have right now. I don't know if that answers some of your questions. There's a good amount. There's going to be a bad player too.
Yeah, that really answered a lot of it for me, man. Because I definitely was more of a Wilson guy. But he definitely.
Oh, I like a lot of Wilson too. Trust me.
I really started paying attention to Fields after what I watched. So I was just wondering why I should watch more. Maybe you just pointed me to why I should watch more.
The ceiling, it's the ceiling of Fields, where if you like people say, like that Wilson comparison, that Carson Wentz when he was good comparison, the Deshaun Watson, like those playmaker type players, like he has that in him. So if you could build him up to be that, and if you could, do I ever think he's going to be a guy who's going to read both sides of the field and go through reads consistently? Would I bank on it? No, but if you can cut the field in half and take advantage of his running ability with some RPOs and read options, that extra threat is really hard for defenses to account for. Like that's, teams typically when they're scheming don't account for the quarterback if they can't run, and the NFL is transitioning into the NFL being that type of league, and Wilson is a runner. He's a quarterback who can run, but nowhere to the level of Fields. Fields has that complete other dimension that Wilson does not possess.
Fields are running a 40? You think he'd be like a low 4.5?
Yeah, probably like mid 4.5, low 4.5, which is like a running back in the NFL. Like that's a fine speed. The acceleration, the contact balance, the way he sees lanes. Like he now there are times like in the Clemson game where, and I get it's in a big spot and you're running for the first down where he got absolutely drilled. Like, yeah, let's slide there,
Yeah, I've seen that too.
But then again, at the same time, like that could be a negative where slide, but at the same time, okay, was it fourth down or third down? You're going for the first down, you're playing to get to the national championship. That also shows grit. And then obviously him coming back with most likely at least bruised ribs, if not broken ribs, and throwing another 3-4 touchdown passes while wincing, taking away his running ability was an elite game from him. Like that, it just is against one of the best schools in the nation. So he has a absurdly high ceiling. That's why to look into him, and among the other 20 traits I mentioned. So
yeah, and maybe and I wonder, like Josh Allen is, because Josh Allen was all about his ceiling when you drafted him, right? What he could be. And the scary thing for us Jets fans is Josh Allen is approaching that ceiling, and we're seeing it week after week after week. But I almost kind of think, does Fields have a higher ceiling than Allen? Because Fields is definitely a better runner than Allen. I mean, Allen, sure, I'll take Allen on a quarterback power more because he's bigger. But just from a running on a down-to-down basis, Fields is a better runner than Allen. And Allen is a great running quarterback. Now, Fields does not have as strong as an arm as Allen, but he definitely has a more consistent deep ball and things like that. So like
this ball that I'm putting up here, 61 yards off platform. Like this is absurd. Like this is plenty of arm strength. Like you don't need much more than that.
Yeah. So I almost think that, like, based on the two things I said, that Fields probably, I think, has a higher ceiling than Allen.
I think it's similar because I think like I think Fields has proven more in college than
definitely
Allen
has a lower floor.
I think well now that we know what Allen is, yeah, for sure. But coming out of college, I would say no. But the thing is, like with Fields versus Allen, like yeah, the running ability. Allen's a guy who's bigger than Fields, and I think is more of like a physical specimen in terms of like standing in the pocket, taking hits, like breaking crazy sacks, where Fields might have more of athletic ability and speed than Allen does. So they're both great runners, just in different ways, So I would say their ceiling is pretty similar, but relatively, like that's a high freaking ceiling. Like if Fields reaches his ceiling with a good coach, like
dude,
the Jets are set, bro. Like that's so. Where Wilson has a high ceiling.
Enjoying a lot of Sundays for many years, if that's the case.
Yeah. So
let's hope so.
Sharma, is there anything else you want to add?
Yeah, there was one more thing, because it's because I think we're set on the choices at QB. I think, in my opinion, anyway, between Fields and Wilson at number 2. Coaching, like you said, on Fields' side, you would like more of a spread offense type coach, offensively wise. On Wilson's side, is there anybody that you think that would definitely be a good pairing for him?
In terms of Wilson, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, so I don't like to just throw stuff out there. I don't know a ton about like what the other guys run in terms of like, is it more play action? Is it more leveled concepts? Like I'm not necessarily sure. That's why I'm going to have to break down their offenses. I just know for the guys for Fields in terms of like, the Dable out there or whatever, how I always freaking pronounce that wrong. The spread guys I've identified. I haven't identified the guy because I think Wilson For me, it's been more of a focus on Fields of who could fit him, because I think Wilson's a little bit more scheme diverse. Like I think Wilson could pretty much run anything. Now, obviously, in the offense that Wilson's going to run, do you want it as much read option? Like RPO is fine. RPO is RPO. Read option is read option. They're two different. They're completely different. Fields can run a lot more read option. Do I want obviously any quarterback running it too much? No, because I'm worried about injuries. I think Wilson, you can mix it in a little bit. He's a good athlete, but like, listen, the athleticism is going to be a little bit diminished as he comes to the NFL level. It's a lot different than playing at BYU, where Fields, I think it really translates where he'll be one of the best athletes, where Wilson is a good athlete and a functional athlete, but nowhere to the level of Fields is. But I think he's also more scheme diverse with the offense he runs. So it's not something I've necessarily even like looked into with him, and an offense I prefer. But that stuff will all be, as you said, you follow the channel, so you'll be, you'll be watching, I'm sure, those breakdowns. So.
Yes, I will. Thank you guys, as always.
All right, Sharman, you have a good one.
All righty. Okay, so returning him. Okay, we're gonna run through some other topics. Let's see check the chat. Pete Frenna, super chat, got to answer it. How do these quarterbacks rank if you put pre-draft Darnold in there?
It's probably an unfair thing to ask you right now because you still have to watch tons more film on them.
Yeah, I got to say I had to watch more film. On that, I would. Man, yeah, that's hard right now. Yeah, Pete, I'll get back to you on that one. I would say right now, if I had to answer, again, don't hold me to this, I would probably say Wilson 1, Fields 2, Darnold 3, but I could make the argument for Darnold at 2 as well, though, because of I liked a lot of what Darnold did. He was just way too risky at times, which also has similar issues to Zach Wilson in that way. So I see Sam in the chat. Yeah, Sam, I appreciate the guy who got me that film, which is I'm not gonna say the name because I don't know who got who film and stuff like that. But yes, I appreciate that person. Okay, Kyle, let's. My thing stayed up.
Mine tumbled all the way to the floor, man.
Okay, so let's get into some other topics. I'm gonna drop the calls for now, just because we only have a half an hour left, so I'm not gonna take any callers. So I appreciate freaking everybody who called in and everybody who's still in the chat. Let's run into some other things before we close out the episode, because these are things that are relevant to today. So let's get through these. The whole Lawrence thing, there's been some rumors about him forcing his way to the Jets now. Do you buy into any stock into that? Because Khan runs him out and then he forces a trade. And by the way, I've seen some other people in the chat talking about trades. Do the Dolphins trade up to the Jets at number 2? You force them to trade up for Sewell? No. We're going to say the Dolphins, hey, I know you're taking a quarterback. We're going to trade up and give you an extra second-round pick or whatever to take a tackle that we know you're not taking. Like, that would make no sense. So, no, you're not trading down to 3 for them to take whoever else. Because, listen, the Dolphins might take a quarterback too. Like, you don't know. Like, that's not a guarantee.
I doubt it. 1 year into Tua, and Tua didn't even start half the
Cardinals.
games this year.
The Cardinals did it with Josh Rosen.
Yeah, but I mean,
I'm just saying. Listen, if it's more than a 0 point, if it's a 1% chance, I'm not trading down. Take the guy. You don't screw around at quarterback. But
no, if I'm the Dolphins, I'm seriously considering, because I'm with you on that. But I don't know. I feel like they're not going to do it.
So does Trevor Lawrence force his way to the Jets?
No.
Okay.
No, he doesn't. There's no indications that he would do it. But shit, I mean, he is. You know, everyone was cooking up that stuff about the Jets, but when you just heard these comments that Khan made, that's much more of a reason to actually do that. Like, you're talking about an owner that probably wasn't even watching football 2 decades ago. I'm just taking a guess. I don't know that for sure. And now he says he's going to have say over like personnel and things like that to an extent. Sheesh.
Yeah, I see some people talking about edge rusher in the draft. Edge rusher is not a strong draft from the people I respect and see. So that's why I almost am willing to overpay a little bit for a Judon or Ngakoue, even though I think they might be a little bit overrated. Again, I want to watch some of their stuff, but edge rusher is a position I feel like you need. If you're going to add one position on defense in free agency, it's edge rusher, and then you can address corner later. But
the Ravens always have a big name free agent pass rusher on the market
who doesn't live up to his hype going to other teams. I know, that's why I'm worried about Judon. Even Ngakoue, like, what has he done the last couple of months? But moving on,
not much.
We talked about Gase. We talked about the options at 2. I think we're both locked in. Kyle, the Jets should trade down and build around Darnold, right?
I'm telling you, man. Look at my pin, my pinned tweet. I said missing out on Trevor Lawrence made me step on the ledge. I'm willing to walk off the ledge if we take a good quarterback at 2. But you stick with Darnold. I'm jumping off that ledge. I don't care. You bring my mom to the scene. She's not talking me out of jumping off the ledge.
Oh, this is even better, Kyle. Even better than Darnold. Jimmy G, good choice for the Jets. Yeah, let's bring in Jimmy G.
I never
is
liked
absolute
him.
trash.
Never.
He's trash, dude. If you put any good quarterback in that system, they're producing so much more than Jimmy G does. Bring him back to the Patriots. Goodbye. Jimmy G is not a good quarterback, regardless of whatever the stats say, which I don't know what they are. Coaches. Now let's go through some of the coaches that we've been kind of hitting on here and there. I guess we'll do it a little bit more of a lightning round because we've already been talking about them. Requested so far. Let's talk about those guys. Eberflus, do you know anything about him, the Colts defensive coordinator? Any thoughts on that?
I mean, I know the Colts Steve was pretty impressive this year, but I don't know much about him. I didn't even know his name until like recently.
Yeah, neither did I. So the only thing I will say for him, again, we'll dive in if they get hired or whatever. But I think he's produced really well in terms of like his defensive rankings and how efficient that defense has done for the talent they have. Like, I know they have a good D front, and I know Leonard's good, but like, I don't love their safeties. I don't love their corners. Like, I don't think they have a ton of talent on that team. So for him to be near a top defensive level is great. But again, like we've been saying, do you want the coordinator or do you want the leader? And do I know enough about Eberflus to say he's a leader, he's a CEO? And again, a lot of people will go to these guys and say, oh, well, his players say good things about him. You're very, very rarely, unless you're Adam Gase, and have a player come out and say, yeah, that guy sucks, or no comment. Like, a lot of guys are going to praise him. So
it's actually really amazing that Adam Gase got a head coaching job, because almost always guys that are actually getting head coaching interviews, players won't say bad things about them. But
yeah,
tons of players bash Gase, yet he's still, and then he got fired, and then he still got another head coaching job. It's quite amazing, honestly.
Yeah. Okay. I see there's a ton of stuff, and I'm not going to be able to read through all the chat. There's just way too much stuff. So if you're, and he using his hips, I guess you're talking about Fields. Yeah. All that stuff, like, weight transfers, like all that stuff we'll talk about. But if you want some stuff, okay, regardless. Next guy, Bieniemy was another guy that requested. I know we talk about him a lot. He's not in my top 5. I think he's overrated because, again, people look at the best defense in the NFL, the best offense in the NFL. Oh, this guy on the Chiefs is coaching one of the best offenses of all time, with, well, maybe, at least of this year. They're the best offense the last couple of years. Let's bring him in. But again, Andy Reid, I think, has quite a large part to do with their success. I'm not sure how much is Bieniemy, and that's why Bieniemy is not one of my top guys. I wouldn't be. It's like an average signing to me. I'd be like, not miserable, not thrilled, but kind of like cautiously optimistic, I guess.
Forget Andy Reid for a moment, because we know that, he's historically had so many great offenses and he's the driving factor in that. But just, you got to stop looking at all the Chiefs numbers and stuff. And I know they're amazing, amazing, amazing numbers, but also look at the talent.
Yeah.
They have a guy who's on a Hall of Fame type of trajectory already as a quarterback. And we're saying that, and he's 4 years into his career.
He's one of the most, like, just talking about talent, one of the most talented quarterbacks you'll see ever.
Yeah. A tight end who's on a Hall of Fame type of career. Tyreek Hill, there is no other weapon in the entire league like him. His skill set is totally unique. And then they got other skill position players. And then this year, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, pretty good offensive line. Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, there is talent all over the place. There's a reason why that offense produces the way it does week in, week out. So you also got to factor that in with Bieniemy, right? I mean, we've seen not the greatest coordinators in the world, but had great talent, still have great teams. So
Ryan Schottenheimer, the best run game in the NFL. And then look what happened. Yeah, no, Bieniemy, he's not coming to the Chiefs, 2.0 with the Jets. And again, offensive coordinator under the head coach, who's an offensive guy. I'm not sold on what he does for that team. Completely different being a head coach than an OC. Dabble, we talked about him, Dable. I'll never know how to pronounce that right until I hear it, I guess. He's probably
kind of like Gase when they interviewed Gase. I remember Michael Kay interviewed Gase when he just got the Jets job, and they're like, "How do you pronounce your name?" He's like, "It's Gase. I don't know why people say Gaze."
Yeah, well, there's no Z in there, so Gase is a little bit easier than Dable. I think it's Dable. That's what
telling
I usually say.
But Travis Wingfield, who covers the Dolphins, he now works for the Dolphins. He watched probably every Adam Gase press conference, and he was still calling him Gaze.
He's from Florida, though. That doesn't count.
No, he's not from Florida. No, he lives in Florida now. He's from Washington State.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess he molded into a Floridian because that's a different country over there. It really is.
That's true.
Yeah. So Dable, he's my number one in terms of coordinators. He's not my number one choice. He's probably my number 3 or 4. I really, really like what he's done with Josh Allen. Obviously, he's really simplified reads. It's more spread offense this year. Like he's really simplified everything for Allen. And there's a reason that Allen has taken steps in the direction he has. Upon and also with bringing in a Zach Moss, bringing in obviously Diggs is like the best receiver in the NFL this year. Like so that's why we want an Allen Robinson for the young guy. But his impact is much more impressive to the Bills than Bieniemy to the Chiefs, who have elite talent everywhere with one of the best coaches in the last couple of decades in Andy Reid in terms of like his sustained success through whatever team he's been on. So I really like him as well, and they've requested to interview him. Do you think there's a shot he comes here? Do you think it's a low percentage shot, or kind of like what are you feeling about the percentage chance he comes? I guess
I think it's pretty low. He'll probably get a job somewhere, probably, I would assume. But there's how many teams vying for his services? He doesn't seem to be one of the hot names on the Jets list, and the Jets have a long list, so the odds I would say are pretty low.
Somebody said in the chat, Wilson at 1, trade to 5 to take Patrick Surtain. You're going to trade up from 27 to 5 to take a corner. There's absolutely no way. Now, if like Surtain was falling and he was at like, if you're at like 27 and he's at like 25, 24, and you really love him, sure. But the Jets need players. You're not going to trade up. You know how many that would cost multiple first round picks to trade up that many spots. So absolutely not.
27 to 5. Yeah.
That's a massive jump. Like that is absurd. Yeah. Another guy they requested is Arthur Smith. What are your thoughts on Arthur Smith? I have my thoughts. What are yours?
Yeah, I kind of know your thoughts, I guess, because of what I don't know. I saw a little bit of that thread that you were getting into it with those guys. I mean, one thing about the Titans offense is they're very balanced. I mean, I know you said it's like all Derrick Henry, but no, they also have a good passing game too.
Which is built around play action and Derrick Henry.
But they also do have a lot of talent, and Tannehill is definitely playing the best ball of his career. But I want to say this, though. I always kind of liked Tannehill. I always thought he was much better than people gave him credit
for. Look at him with Philbin,
Yeah, I mean, listen, Tannehill with Philbin, like, he had some garbage time stats and stuff, but he always had pretty decent stat lines. And I'm talking, listen, even Tannehill's first year with Gase, Tannehill had about 7.7, 7.8 yards per attempt, which is not bad at all. His first year with Adam Gase.
Yeah.
Tannehill was not a bad quarterback. Now, his last 2 years with Gase, his second year he tore his ACL, didn't play at all that year.
He played half the games he possibly could have under Adam Gase too. So
and the other year he had a severe shoulder injury. How are you going to throw the ball with a severe shoulder injury? All right. So I can't knock him for not playing well that season.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to blame that all on Gase either. But I mean, you do have to give some credit to Arthur Smith for Tannehill making this type of jump. I mean, at least some credit right there. But AJ Brown's a freak. Corey Davis is a very nice number 2. This kid, Jonnu Smith, seems to be a pretty good tight end. I'm not going to act like I watched a lot of Titans or whatever.
Good offensive line.
Things impressive. Really this is what I was about to say. They lost Taylor Lewan to an injury, and they also lost. Didn't they lose one of their big time guards? They lost. They lost Conklin tackle. Excuse me. So they lost both their starting tackles, who were both upper echelon type of tackles last year. They lost both of them, but the offensive line is still, grading teams and stuff. So I still think you got to give Arthur Smith some credit for that too, right? Because it's not like, I mean, Derrick Henry does have holes to run through. It's not like, I mean, that's one of the things about him is he's really hard to tackle once he gets that head of steam. You got to meet him at the line of scrimmage. So he's getting through holes. He has some room to run in. So Arthur Smith, I mean, again, we're going on offense again. I'm much more excited about that than any defensive guy. And I keep hearing, Saleh is the really hot name. Robert Saleh. Even I saw someone in the chat just say that. None of the defensive guys intrigue me. I'd much rather have an Arthur Smith. So I don't know. Those are kind of my roundabout thoughts. I am curious. I'm not going to act like I read Michael's article, but apparently Michael has a lot of good stats to back up why Arthur Smith is the guy.
So I think he's like a mid-tier guy for me. I just don't think he's top notch again, because like a little bit like with the Chiefs, like some of what he's doing is again built around Derrick Henry, like that play action. Yeah, like Tannehill's played great, but he also threw like 12, 13 passes in the playoff game. Like it's still built around Derrick Henry, who literally just ran for over 2,000 yards, which you're not going to have with the Jets. And a lot of people we'll point to the stats. Okay, well, 2018, he had 1,000 rushes, 4.9 yards per carry. And then in 2019, he had 1,500 yards for 5.1 yards per carry. So the difference in production on a snap-to-snap basis is not that different. And you're looking at the differences in the team where you add a Tannehill, you add an A.J. Brown, a top flight receiver. Obviously, that was his rookie year, so he wasn't as good as he is now. But you add that, you add, again, Tannehill, who's much better than Mariota. So did he really have that much of a difference for Derrick Henry, or did more talent come around him? And I get a better quarterback and maybe a little bit better of a coach, but it's not like Derrick Henry was Trent Richardson and he turned into Derrick Henry once he came. Like Derrick Henry destroyed the end of 2018. Like, because I remember that was the year I drafted him in fantasy. He did nothing, and towards the end of the year, he had like 10 touchdowns in like freaking 5 games, and I cut him. And he was good. He was good before he came there. So yeah, he got more touches and he got better offense around him. So, and people will say, and again, I'm not saying names, but they put him on outside zone, and people think they run on power because he's a big guy. That's not really true.
That is true. You're right.
You want guys, Fournette. You want guys who are powerful to build up their steam. So a lot of coaches will run them outside zone, wide zone pitches, things like that. Like, people don't just run power. Like, power is more about.
But Derrick Henry's best thing as a runner is his stiff arm. So you get him to the outside, he can
exactly. So if they were running on power, that would be an indictment of how bad of a coach he is. Not like, oh, he doesn't run on power, that means he's a good coach. Power is about reading the gaps, being able to explode through holes, where guys who are much longer, like a train to build up, need to have outside zones, wide tracks. So that's not something I'm going to give him credit for. Now, the pre-snap motion stuff that people talk about, which again is good, but a lot of people use pre-snap motion to get better positions for their running backs and leverage on linebackers and things like that. Like, it's not so foreign that to make it a reason why I'm going to hire him. Like, so eye candy is all around the NFL. That's what they do with their running game. Great. Is he a bad coach? No, not at all. Would I be happy with the signing? Yeah, I'd be fine with it, but he's not above these other guys for me. I just think people give him a little bit too much credit in certain areas. Some people he's the number 1. I get it. Some people he's the number 2, 3, whatever. But for me, he's more mid-level. That's just how I feel. Moving on.
Where was Arthur Smith before he came to the Titans?
He was like a tight ends coach of the Titans, I believe, right before that. I don't know before that, but like, again, that's another guy, quick riser, like, tight ends coach, whatever it is, to OC, to head coach right away. And again, is he a leader? People, oh, well, his player said he's a great leader. Fantastic. That doesn't, players coming out, like, people don't want to kind of go against the grain, because people look at that stuff like, oh, this player's calling out his coach, we're not going to sign him. Like, there's stuff like that happens, but continuing to move on, because we have other coaches to talk about. The dream coaches, Campbell, Fitzgerald. What are your thoughts on them? I gave plenty of my thoughts, but let's just let's do some lightning round to get to these topics.
Yeah, Campbell seems to be number 1. He's done it in multiple places. Toledo, Iowa State. You're talking about Iowa State. I mean, he has them competed in Big 12 championships, and they, that was a complete laughing stock of that conference. And now they're a powerhouse there. I read like a really long piece about him. He seems like, he seems like the definition of like a leader of men type of guy, and a guy who kind of knows everything. He played big time ball himself, so that's also another feather in his cap. So he seems like the guy. Fitzgerald, I don't know as much about, but I only hear good things. So they seem like options 1A and 1B for me. I really like the idea of going and getting a college head coach. Yes, there is the uncertainty of them not being in the NFL, but I mean, say what you want about Rule. He seems to have done a really good job in Carolina.
He had the exact same type of qualities that the Fitzgerald and the Campbell said, like the program builder, like took Temple to this and all that stuff. So that's why, and he's worked out pretty well. Ryan Day, Ohio State, the head coach. A lot of people have talked about him recently. I don't know enough about him, to be honest. Yeah, I don't think he's coming out anyway.
Yeah, Shefty said that Fitzgerald is open to taking head coaching interviews, but Ryan Day, no way. And just think about that. He's getting ready to prepare his guys for the national championship. And this is another thing I said too. He's at one of the biggest programs, top 5 program in the entire country. Why is he going to leave that cushy job for the uncertainty of an NFL? Work with a GM that he might have no relationship with at all. Work for an owner like Khan, really?
Yeah. No. moving on to another college guy, Dan Mullen, the Florida head coach.
I don't know anything about him.
I've heard a lot of mixed reviews about him, and he's a really strange dude.
Why is he strange?
People have. I'll send you an article. Like apparently his personality is just like off. Like he's just weird. Like a lot of people have noticed it.
Like what? Like autistic?
Somebody said that his wife kisses players on the lips, like just like weird stuff that comes out about him.
That's weird.
And again, it's something I want to look into more, but they don't think that he's going to translate to the NFL level. I'm not that interested because I haven't heard much positive things. Like usually if you have like Florida fans be like, no, please don't, get rid of him, all this stuff. I see Florida fans are like, okay. Like, who cares? Like he's not, I don't think he's a great prospect. Joe Brady, we've talked plenty about him. High risk, high reward. Brandon Stanley from the Rams defensive coordinator. Have you heard that at all? I think you said that before, right?
Yeah, I said that right before we began the show. Yeah, I heard about that. I'll tell you what, that Rams defense looked really shitty against the Jets.
Yeah, again, another guy who's like a young up and comer, but I don't want a defensive guy who's not proven, not my style. Robert Saleh is another guy people have talked about. From everything you see that, people love to play from him and things like that. He's a fiery guy, but another defensive guy who I don't know who his staff's going to be. I don't really know a ton about him. I think he's an interesting guy. I'm just not super diversified in what he kind of brings.
Yeah, me neither.
Wink Martindale, who's probably, I think in terms of coordinators, like I said, I like Dable. I think Wink's my 2 as a coordinator, but I think Smith could be my 2 depending on the staff he brings in. I'm leaning more towards Wink because I know that if he brings in a Tony Elliott, and if he brings in a Marvin Lewis, I really love that staff. Where I'm not sure with Arthur Smith. So I'm like not lukewarm on Wink Martindale. I'm a little bit hotter than that for him, but again, not one of my top options. I prefer an offensive guy, but hearing the staff he brings in, and he seems to be one of those guys, especially who's learned under John Harbaugh, who could be one of those guys who's going to manage the whole team, and especially him. He was apparently a big proponent of Joe Brady. Obviously, Joe Brady's working out. Now he wants to bring in Elliott, another top offensive guy from a top program, shows that he knows about the offense. And the fact that he's looking to connect with a Marvin Lewis says a lot too. I think in terms of letting Marvin Lewis take over the defense, a guy who's a head coach in the NFL for years, allowing Wink to be more of the overseer of the entire structure of the team. So I really like that he's seemingly going to be that overseer guy from what I've heard. So I like Wink Martindale.
How old is he?
I think like 57, I think, off the top of my head.
Oh, wow. So that's old. That's a relative. Rex got the Jets job like a little bit before he was 50. It's like 48, something like that. And like he was considered to be a little bit on the elderly side of getting his first head coaching job.
He is 57.
Yeah. So that doesn't mean he can't be good. Like Fangio was a guy who was great defensive mind.
But look at Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll's is old, and
he's old now, but he was a head coach in the NFL back in the 90s.
He's still doing well. But okay.
Yeah. No, so I'm just saying like it's but the part of the reason why I asked that is because it's interesting that a guy that age who you'd think would kind of be settled in his ways is still looking to guys that are 25-ish years younger than him to run the offensive side of things.
Awareness.
So this is kind of like what Scott Mason's pointed out as he's kind of dug into him more is like, yeah, that's like being aware. Like, all right, shit, I don't know everything. You teach me some of this, young college shit that you guys are doing over there, and let's see how we can attack things, together as a team. That's pretty cool. So
yeah. The number
out of
one
all the
option,
out of all the defensive minds, he seems to be the most attractive based on that.
I agree. The number one guy in everybody's mind, Brian Schottenheimer. What are your thoughts on that?
Dude,
that's the one.
That's my guy, man. That is my guy.
I love you, Jets X Factor, but if they hire Brian Schottenheimer, I might bail out and focus more on my life other than football. I don't know if I could do it. I really don't know.
I said this to Scott Mason last night. I said, if the Jets actually do hire Brian Schottenheimer, they're going to get ridiculed nationally for it and stuff. And I will say this, they totally deserve it.
Yeah. Moving on. Let's see. What are your top 3? Give me your, as of right now, I know you have a lot more work to do on these guys, but give me your 1, 2, 3. And then I want to run through some other things, but I do have to make this lightning round.
okay, yeah. I feel very unconfident like ranking these guys because like it's not like I've watched tons and tons and tons of tape of all
That's
these
why
guys or whatever.
I've prefaced it.
But I would say Campbell 1, Fitzgerald 2, and I'll say Joe Brady 3.
I share the same 1 and 2. Dable is my 3.
Oh yeah. Never mind. Dable 3. Sorry.
Okay.
Brady 4. Brady's still very sexy to me, so that's why he popped into mind.
He's high risk, high reward for me. I don't love it. I wouldn't be mad either way. I'd be definitely like cautiously optimistic with him. Something else I wrote down: building pieces on the team. I think we both agree I think in terms of like the plus positions. Oh no, not in a plus position. It's the defensive front that you're really excited about with Shepard, with Fado Kasi, with John Franklin Myers, with Quinn Williams, obviously. But other than that, like position groups, I think they all need a lot of work. I think the offensive line is trending in the right direction. I think with guys like May, Davis, Hall, the secondary is a big fix, but it's closer than people think it is. I think at a certain aspect.
What would you give May as a contract? Like around how much per year would you be willing to pay him?
10.
Oh, you're not going to keep him at 10. He's
okay.
Gone.
Then goodbye. 10, 11. I don't think he's worth much more than that.
You wouldn't pay him 15? That's like
no.
Eddie Jackson's getting almost 15.
Yeah, no, he's not that much of a playmaker to me. And again, I think there are plays that are on film that people don't realize that he's making or not making. I think he's solid. I think he's top 15 as a free safety, maybe 10 to 12 range. But Eddie Jackson, like when he got that contract, was like argument for the best free safety in the league type contract. Like $10 million, I think is a good for a solid safety. So I think that's what he is. If he's asking for 12, 13, I'm not.
I would say if the Jets weren't in this position, like let's say they already had hit on a quarterback, like then I would consider maybe giving him that. But because I want to invest so much money in the offense, I don't think I'd be willing to pay him that either.
Jim Harbaugh is a good option.
But clearly you and I are on different levels with May. And we have been for some time.
He's solid. He's not game breaking. He's solid.
Okay, that's fair.
Ricardo, Jim Harbaugh is a good option. No, you're going from one dickhead power hungry coach to another dickhead power hungry coach who's underachieved at Michigan. Let's not do that. Ran himself out of the 49ers. Why wouldn't do that again? That makes no sense.
Who from the 49ers?
Harbaugh.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely not. No, absolutely. That's another one. I think I'm out.
No.
Let's see.
3 years ago. Yes, definitely.
I put to talk about Adams and Johnson in here, like the running back position. I think those are guys who are like solid, like 3-4s. Maybe Johnson's a 2, along with P. Ryan. I still think they need like their lead back type guy. A lot of people talk about like Najee Harris or Travis Etienne with the Seahawks pick. I like some of those guys, but I'm not addressing running back that early into the draft. Look at a Williams from North Carolina in the 3rd round or one of these other guys. But when you need offensive line, you need tight end, you need receivers. Like you don't need a great running back.
You can win with a backfield of Adams, Johnson, and P. Ryan. Like you can win ball games with that if you have other pieces intact. Running back is by far out of like non-special teams positions, by far the least valuable.
What if we traded back from 2 and drafted Trey Lance and signed Phillip Rivers? What? Like why? Like, no, let's just draft their quarterback. No conspiracy theories.
You got to take the guy who is.
You're thinking too much.
If you have the quarterback who's highest on your list, there you got to take that guy. You're not going to say
coaches don't go.
We have a slightly lower grade on this guy, and we'd like the extra pick, so let's take the guy we got slightly lower grade. No, you don't do that.
Yeah,
with quarterback.
You're taking your top guy at 2. You're not trading back and signing Phillip Rivers, he's like 80 years old and he has no arm. Like I know he's done relatively well with the Colts, but no, absolutely not.
He has to put his whole body into every throw.
Yeah, his shoulders are
the ball 10 yards.
Now this is something so the Jets' main free agents, May, we just spoke about him. You're willing to give him $30 million a year. I don't know why. Brian Poole, what are your thoughts on bringing him back?
If we can get him on the same deal that we got him for this year, I'd do it in a heartbeat.
Especially after the injury too, they might be able to. I'm a fan of bringing Poole back again. For the people who think he's like, $9, $10, $11 million, I think that's too high. He was okay with the Falcons at best. With the Jets, he was pretty solid, and I think he will average out to be about maybe a little bit above average slot corner. A lot of people tend to just say, okay, he's not terrible. He's on the Jets. I don't watch other teams. He's fantastic. I think he's pretty good. I don't think he's elite, but I like Poole. Jenkins, what are your thoughts on him?
Jordan Jenkins.
Yeah, I don't think he's coming back.
Goodbye. I have no interest in him.
I don't think he's coming back. He
I
played.
saw more off the edge from Huff this year from a pass rush perspective. Basham and even John Franklin Myers when they kicked him out there. He had nothing in the pass rush department this year. Nothing.
Dark said, can the Jets tag May to prevent him from leaving? And apparently it will be around $10, $11 million. I'm completely fine with tagging him.
Well, if they
finding his replacement.
If you tag him, the cap hit will be decently high, but you're not going to have to pay him a huge amount of guaranteed money like you would if you have to sign him to a
no, but even if you just tag him for whatever, like if you're going to keep him at $10, $11 million a year, it allows Davis to grow into that role or a drafted guy in the 4th round to grow into that role, like whatever it may be. And then hopefully you can sign him in the future, but I'm not giving up $15 million a year for May. Somebody said, prefer a vet back like Jamal Williams. Yeah. Jamal Williams is a guy who I'm pretty interested in as well.
Who? Jamal
Williams, a running back from the Packers as an option in free agency. People,
why can I not think of Jamal Williams?
Ricardo, you got to chill with these like Matt Ryan's, Phillip Rivers. Like, why not just draft the quarterback at 2? Like, I don't know why you're thinking so hard about Matt Ryan and like even Stafford. Like Stafford's 32 years old. Let's get our guy for the next 10 years. Why are we trying to get other people's guys and pay them big contracts? Like, the biggest thing about a new
Stafford
quarterback
ever be better than slightly average? Above average? Will he ever be better than
even
above
if he
average?
is? How long is it going to last? For 3 years, and then you're looking for another quarterback? Like, no. And like, listen, like one of the most beneficial things of the rookie quarterback is that rookie contract. So yeah, let's get Stafford and sign him to a $30 million contract. Like, absolutely not. Prove it year for May. Perryman, where your thoughts? Listen, I like Perryman more than other people think.
I'd love to bring Perryman back.
Where's that play from the Browns? I don't that play. Like this is just the stupid things I hear where like people are like, oh, he had 2 drops this game. Like he's so bad. Like other people would make this catch. Like he had the drop was.
You'd have to imagine that you could get Perryman at a cheaper contract than what you had for this year because
was that the Browns game? That drop.
You're talking about the Denzel Ward one?
Well, it had to be the Browns game. It was Denzel Ward.
Yeah, I'm wondering if that's what you're talking about.
The one on the left sideline. Yes. It's it's literally the first play of the game. Like, and again, I'm not going to get into this like at all like deeply, but this is what people on radio, other podcasts, whatever it may be, like, oh, he dropped the ball. Did he drop the ball, or did Denzel Ward do a fantastic freaking job extending and punching through his hands? Like, yeah, this is a drop. He had it in his hands. It's not like it squirted through his hands and he dropped it. He had a good corner doing an elite job of tracking this ball into Perriman's hands, punching through the hands. Like
that's why Denzel Ward's a top 4 pick right there.
And that's why he dropped the ball. So yeah, drop sure, but like people criticizing him. Like after this game, I saw people on Twitter like, "Oh, Perriman needs to be cut. He's trash. He dropped the ball." Like, are you serious? Like because of this drop? Like people are so dumb.
That's gonna be a sick catch unless Denzel Ward makes an
elite play.
Dude, he was the 4th overall pick in that draft. The kid is very talented. I'm talking about Ward, but that's a sick catch by Perriman right there.
Yo, I am 100% game for Perriman coming back as a 4.
And you'd probably
like $5-6 million.
He's making what 6 with a max of 8 this year if he hit all his escalators or whatever. Mm-hmm. You have to imagine the contract you can get him for this year would be cheaper because he's not coming off that high stat rate at the end of the year.
The cap lowers. He had some injury problems. So if you were going to sign him to a $5 million base with incentives for receiving yards, games played, whatever it may be, Perriman as your 4 is top notch. Like, I don't care what anybody says. That's a fantastic number 4. Absolutely fantastic, especially considering his speed. And if you get a guy who can hit a deep ball, like a Fields or even a Wilson versus Darnold, you know how much more you could take advantage of Perriman? Like Perriman is he's a big dude who runs legit for a high 4.3 probably.
And I like Perriman on those over routes, man.
Oh yeah, for sure. Okay, moving on. Other 2 guys, the bigger free agents. Crowder, do you keep him for the $10-11 million? Or do you get rid of him?
No question.
Keep Crowder.
100%.
Fant, same thing. Keep Fant unless you get into a situation where you can sign a really good guy at tackle and you drop Fant.
And who would that even be?
There's one guy out there from I think it's like the guy from like Minnesota everybody's talking about.
Really?
Yeah, a right tackle. So if you can sign him, sure. Or if there's a guy in the second round who you love and you want to see how he works out in camp and drop Fant, sure. But you're not going to just drop Fant for no reason. Fant is, and people talk about, $9 million. $9 million for a starting right tackle who's decent is not a high cap number. It's not. Like that's a decent contract.
By the way, do you think Fant was better in run game this year or pass pro? In your opinion?
Oh God. I would say the run game, because the pass game, I get frustrated how he always 45-degree sets and he always opens after his fourth or fifth like step, and people and good edge rushers time it. His hands dropping, him opening
gets
his
his
hips
feet too close to at times,
Well-
and then he
well,
loses power.
It's that, and at a certain step when he's closing ground on guys, he tends to open and always play the arc. So guys time his momentum going that way. They either bull rush him, swat the hands, go inside, and good edge rushers beat him like that all the time. So he needs to learn. He needs to learn vertical sets. Like he only 45-degree sets, jump sets. Like that's all he does. So I don't know how he's not taught that, but regardless, I still think he's a decent tackle, for the Jets moving forward.
He looks like he's galloping like a horse when he's kicking back in his steps. Do you see that?
Yeah. The steps are too big. Like like they're smooth, but they're a little bit too. He doesn't have the connection with the ground I want him to have in terms of like being able to change directions quickly, like drop the post, whatever it may be.
It's funny when him in the run game. When they run a zone, and they usually run it to Becton's side, and he's usually on the backside cutting people off. He cuts people off all the time and then blocks them with his back.
Yeah, ass blocks. Yeah, he ass blocks them. Yeah,
all the time
for sure. Yeah, cutoff block. Trade Salmon at 27th for San Francisco's first rounder this year. Listen, if you want to package Sam and like another pick for another first rounder, fine. Perriman did look great with Flacco.
Well, what did San Fran have? What pick did they have?
Like 15, 16, 17?
I guess it would really depend on like where does the elite talent drop off?
Yeah.
Like if you have like 15 first round grades and you're concerned that your second first round pick is not going to be a guy who you had a first round grade on, then maybe you do something like that.
Somebody said Perriman did look great with Flacco. Dude, Perriman was really good those games against the Chargers and the Pats. Like he could have had 5-6 touchdowns easily. He did have one drop, but one was an under the throw from Flacco against the Patriots penalty on Jason McCourty. Could have been an easy touchdown. Like Perriman is better than people realize he is. I don't give a shit if he has a drop every once in a while. It happens. He's not elite, but you can't compare everybody to an elite receiver. So he'll have a drop or two, but the underutilization of him as a deep threat because of Darnold is so evident. He's not able to hit him.
And he's still a pretty strong hands catcher. Like he catches balls with arms extended, with his arms extended and with his hands. So just because he has a drop every now and then, don't think that he doesn't have decently strong hands.
You know how to drop, and again, I'm not comparing them one for one, but like Brandon Marshall had plenty of drops. Braylon Edwards had plenty of drops. Like
both of them drop more balls than Perriman. Now, granted, they have more balls thrown their way and stuff, but Perriman definitely has better hands than Braylon Edwards. There's no question about it. Brandon Marshall, like I said many times before, he concentration drops with him. Like he would make sick catches with his hands, but then he would have a stupid concentration drop.
What was that ridiculous catch that Perriman had? Was that against the Rams that he had that absurd catch? No, it had to be before that because maybe the Raiders. I forget what game it was. But
what was it against the Dolphins in the second game? No.
Maybe you're right with that one, but like I'll pull it up if I can find it really quickly. I don't think I'm going to be able to, but again, people are so reactionary to one play where one game you hear it and they're on Twitter and oh my god, I love Perriman, and the next game is a drop, which again was a drop, more of a great play by Denzel Ward, and now it's we have to freaking cut this guy. It's like it's people are so hot and cold. This is the catch I'm talking about. So for that drop you had, he also had this catch. So like I upped you on one, so like you can't, this is a fourth. And I've literally heard that or seen that on Twitter. People don't want him as their fourth. You show me any better fourth in the league. Like legitimately, there might be one or two, to be honest. I haven't looked through all the rosters, but he'd easily be a top 5, top 10 option as a fourth. I think pretty hands down. Moving on though, wrap it up. The main targets in free agency, the top 3 positions wanted. We kind of touched on this before, but if you had 3 positions they addressed in free agency and some of those guys, just throw out some names before we close this out.
Guard, Tooney and Scherf. I expect both of them to hit the open market. I don't think that they're going to get franchised the second year in a row. Receivers, Godwin, Allen Robinson, Kenny Galladay. In terms of another position, I mean, you're telling me there's some tackle potentially. I don't know if I'd want to do that.
Yeah,
I mean, what are some other receivers? I know there's others out there. It's just I don't have the list on top of my head, but I'm really looking hard at receivers too.
Yeah, the top guys. It's. I know Curtis Samuel's out there. Obviously Juju, Galladay.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of Juju either.
Yeah, then obviously Godwin's a great option. Allen Robinson. I want one of those top guys. So the top 3 for me are definitely. It's easily receiver and it's guard number 1 for me. Offensive line's more important than receiver, hands down. Receiver 2, and then I'm gonna say edge rusher just because I don't think the draft from what I've seen is overly deep at edge rusher, and I don't know what they're gonna do and how the board falls, and it's a position you don't want to ignore because it's the number 1 or 2 most important position on a defense. So you might have to overpay a Judon or one of those guys. I might not.
What does Judon do well? Like I know what
I think he's a power type guy.
Okay, because I know what's his face does well. The other edge rusher, Ngakoue. Ngakoue is the king of the cross chop.
Yeah, cross chop, explode up the arc, dip, rip. Yeah, for sure. But okay. That's it. Unless you want to, it's already 9:00. I gotta go to work soon, so I gotta end the show. Appreciate the 300 plus people who are in here. I appreciate the still 164 are still sticking around. Everybody in the chat, everybody who called in, appreciate the hell out of all of you. We'll be back the first Monday of every month. We're here. Might do an extra show or 2 with Kyle. Once the head coach comes in, OC breakdown, quarterbacks breakdown, free agent breakdown. All the film will be out there. That not any other site does. So we'll do that. Kyle, any last words for the listeners?
No, just appreciate everyone who gave us a lot of your time. So thanks, guys.
Thank you, Shadow. Thank you, Dark. Thank you, Carmelo, and everybody else who is in here. Pete, everybody else. We'll talk to you guys soon. And thank you for listening.